Good evening, everyone. Welcome, Talkin' Shop with Outlier Firefighters, episode 38. I'm Alex Tanner. I'm your host. I just realized I got to flip us. You can't see that, but I flipped our names. Either way, I'm with Alex Nunez from Lincolnshire Riverwoods Fire Protection District. He's a lieutenant. And Alex, thank you so much for coming on. Obviously, we were green rooming already, and you know that. And it's going to be fun tonight for sure.
Appreciate you having me, man.
Uh, For those of you, if you're watching for the first time or whatever, if you want to ask a question, throw it in the chat. I'll do the best I can to kind of balance all those things. Otherwise, we're just going to roll into the same questions. So if you're ready, we're just going to get going.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
So, what was your first exposure to the fire service?
First exposure. So
I have a couple of cousins that are city firemen. They're actually coming up on retirement here shortly. So they're a few years older, but they came to me right after they went through the fire academy in Chicago. And actually, they came to my house with all their textbooks and were like, "Hey, man, this is what you got to do." I think it was either eighth grade or freshman year, and they were just like, "Hey, this is right up your alley." As far as with my sports background, kind of the leadership background that I had, just even that young, they were just like, "Hey, this is what you got to do." Gave my parents the books, and that's kind of where it initially kind of started. So I kind of had an idea, and that's what I wanted to do early on. Uh, didn't pursue it like to the max at that point. I was playing football at a high level and I was super involved in that. And that's all I wanted to do. My end goal was to get to the NFL. My plan B was to become a fireman. And, obviously the NFL didn't work out. But so at that point, I was just super heavily involved in football. But that's kind of initially where it first started, kind of set the seed in that. And then where I went to starting to go to school, think about colleges and stuff like that. I ended up going to a junior college, local in Palatine Harper, because at the time they were nationally ranked for football, and they had one of the best fire science programs in the country. So I said, "Hey, that's two birds with one stone." So that's kind of where it started. But yeah, I attribute it to my family, to my cousins. They're both, lieutenants in the city, and they're putting in. One's going to put in 30, one's at like 28, and they just kind of initially put that stone in me, and I'm super grateful that they did because obviously, best job in the world, and I've done a lot with it, and I, couldn't be happier. So
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like every kid, I think when they're really little, dreams of being a fireman in a weird way. You know what I mean? Like when you're at grade school and it's all, but then there is a moment there, I think when you're a teenager that it seems like most people either get exposed to it just through whatever, right? And that's pretty cool that you come from some family background in it too. Did you ever ride in the city or experience anything like that?
I didn't. No, I didn't.
just the ride time through schooling and academy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But no, I never
Rode down there with. I wish I would have,
Yeah.
just because obviously for this, it's just a different animal down there.
And I've heard the stories even to, recently, I have an instructor over at NIPSA, as you know, but, a lot of the city guys are there. So just hearing a lot of the stories, it's a total different animal. So I kind of wish I did at one point, but, it
Yeah.
is what it is.
Dog, dude, I feel you because like I'm definitely not knocking being a suburban fireman, but like there's probably a cut of us that are kind of wishing we did that. You know what I mean? Like you get in the burbs and you're kind of like, man. I mean,
Yeah,
I sleep a little bit, but I get through some nights. But man, I can really go to a fire today. Like,
right.
you
It
know,
goes up and down. It's
yeah.
up and down, right? Definitely as you get older and things change in life,
Whether
whether
that's kids or different priorities and stuff like that, it changes. But I think either way, if you started there and you grew up in that culture, you couldn't see yourself being a sub fireman.
Yeah.
it's just. But I think they're both
Highly commendable, right? They do their thing, and we are a total. It's almost I hate to say it's almost like a totally different fire service, almost. Like it is a total different approach, whether it's with rigs, whether it's manning, whether it's resources, stuff like that. So um, all the guys that I work with, I think that are awesome. They never, there's some little jagging that goes on here and there, but for the most part, a lot of the good city guys really respect the suburb firemen, and I think obviously we respect them as well. But
Yeah, it's a different
yeah,
animal. You're right.
yeah, a little bit of me does wish I did take their test back when I was 19. So I don't know if that was
2005 maybe, and I did take their test, but I think I was 30,000 people, and they
Sure.
went through
Yeah.
Yeah, so I never got called, which I kind of am grateful, but not. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, and you can still, it's not like in the burbs you can't connect to that, right? Like we can still
Oh,
share the same values that those guys have. And I think the difference for the most part is like they're going to more calls, so they're getting experience, and we have to like manufacture that experience in a way. Like obviously training and calls aren't apples to apples, but like, in the suburbs we got to step up our training game a whole lot more because we
for
don't
sure.
get it enough. But
Right. And it is, too, not everywhere is like,
what we see on TV or hear these calls. There's a handful of city departments that are running just like we are, running heavily 70 to 80% EMS calls, and you get your fire
every couple months too. So it just kind of depends on
where
where
you are. I think the respect of the job just in general, whether you are doing it, 50 calls a day or you're running 3 calls a day. I mean, it's still the same job at the end of the day,
yeah,
right? So,
yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
but I think I got a little bit of a taste
on some of the busy departments, kind of go off track. My last shift I've been off for a couple, but the last shift we ran, I think we had a hit like the highest call history, in department history.
Yeah.
We ran, I think it was 30, 31.
31 calls that
Yeah.
day, and then
I was working a 48, so the day before we ran 21. So I was like, man, I earned my paycheck
Yeah,
these last 2 days.
what's
You
the
know,
phrase? They
and-
got every last bit out of me.
Oh, hell yeah, man. I walked out of there and the crew, and I was like, guys,
that was a fucking day.
Yeah.
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 it is what it is.
Hey, well, you don't get to pick, right?
No, no.
Yeah.
People they always ask that. They say, well, what made it more busy?
I don't know. It was a Tuesday. There's nothing. There's nothing that
Makes it more, they just wanted to call 911.
Well, usually those get padded with like a storm or something, and then you're chasing all these weird alarms, and they just pad the numbers. I should say usually, but sometimes that's what it is. When it's true,
Right.
like raw calls, you're like,
And the ironic part was that night
was the night that there was a bunch of storms,
yeah,
but
that only generated 2 calls. So everyone's like, oh, was it because of the storms? I'm like, I wish I could say it was, but it wasn't. Like,
Nope.
we were legit running. So, but no, it was all good. Like I said, they got every last bit of it out of us, like you said.
oh, those days. I got a playlist. I do like all these. My wife it drives her nuts, but I have all these Spotify playlists. And don't judge me for this, but man, when we get creamed like that, I just want a McMuffin. That's it. I just want a McDonald's egg McMuffin, right? And so one of the guys I work with, we call it the Rough McMuff. And so I got a Spotify playlist called Rough McMuff. So my wife and I share an account, and if she logs on and sees that that's what I'm listening to on the way home, she's like, "Oh boy, he got creamed." Like,
Yep,
better leave him alone.
I'm gonna leave him alone for a couple hours.
Yeah, let him go do his thing. But yeah, dude, it's always. I mean, those days are fun too when you're with a good crew, because whatever, beat us up. As long as we're with the good crew, beat us up.
100%. And I luckily am, like, consistently.
and we didn't hear one real complaint all day,
Yeah.
and that's just
That makes it that much better, right?
no. Maybe you're here like your little grunts, like God,
Oh yeah,
but
No true complaints, no nothing. These guys are
they're ready to do their job and at all costs, and it's awesome to work with people like that from the top down,
down when you don't have to hear any bitching. Guys are,
whether it's in between a meal, whether if it's sleeping, whether it's in a workout, whether it's something, no complaints at all, and that's the culture that I could go to. I could be around every day. So
Oh, yeah.
luckily,
I got a pretty badass crew, to be honest with you. So
that's awesome. That's good.
yeah.
Did you get your start in Lincolnshire, or so? How did you get your first job in the fire service and then to now. So what was kind of your progression to get to where you are now?
Sure, yeah. Lincoln Charter's first full time. So like I started off in my first part time job was North Palos, like South Suburb. Yeah. So like I mentioned, to kind of go back, my cousins were in the city. So I don't know if you ever heard of the Chicago Blaze, but it was it's a football team.
Yep.
So when I got my fire two and I got my medic, but I wasn't on a department yet, we finagled a way for me to play on the team. So I was playing on that team, which was awesome. Bunch of great dudes. I met a bunch of great guys and a couple of guys from North Palos and a couple of these part-time departments were on the team.
Yeah.
So they were like, they kind of got me in. It wasn't anywhere near my house. It was about an hour drive for some pennies, but it was get your foot in the door. It was a good experience. That's where I started. I wasn't there super long, about 9, 10 months. Then I started working at Long Grove Fire Protection District, which is pretty close to us.
Yeah.
You're very familiar as
You're
well.
next door, yeah. Or yeah,
Yeah. So I worked there part-time. I was working there part-time and North Palos, so almost a full-time schedule between two part-time places. And then, ironically, one of our deputy chiefs that just retired, Deputy Chief Neasley, he was a battalion chief at the time at Lincolnshire, and he was working part-time at Long Grove. And funny, I was riding the ambulance with him, and he was just super awesome guy, super outgoing, always messing around. At least at Long Grove, he was. It was almost like he was a different person, but it was great for me because me and him got along. So he was like, "Hey, take our test at Lincolnshire, yada yada." And at this point, I probably would have never took Lincolnshire's. I just didn't really know about them. They were smaller at the time. I was like, "Oh, okay," and by the grace of God, it worked out phenomenally. I got hired with another guy that was on Long Grove, took their test. I think initially I was I think I was number 13. And then after interviews, I bumped up to 3. And then luckily they hired 3. So that's kind of how it started. A couple part-time places, but landed my gig back in 2015. So almost 10 years with Lincolnshire. And it's honestly been great. It's been great ever since. I'm super blessed that I took the job. Actually, funnily, I had a couple of offers that week that I got offered. One of them was from North Maine, which I did my ride time with, which was a very hard decision for me because I wanted to go there pretty bad. And then actually I was starting to apply for police departments too, because I was testing for about 3 or 4 years and I was getting frustrated.
Yeah.
So I got the call from North Chicago to be a cop there.
No shit.
And yes, and the day after Lincolnshire called me, and I was like, "Thank God." No offense, but
my buddy was a North Chicago cop. Yeah.
One of my good friends is still there, and
Yeah.
he was the guy that got me in. But no offense, I'm obviously glad that I went the other route.
Sure.
But yeah, that's how it started, man, and that's kind of where we're at right now. Been with them for Lincolnshire almost 10 years. I got pushed some good opportunities quick. I got asked to get on the TRT team really fast, which was awesome. We formulated a Swiftwater team, which I got asked to do that early on, maybe within my first couple of years, which I'm super grateful for because honestly, that doesn't happen all the time. And then just a couple other things. I've been the quartermaster. I got asked to be in that division, which is pretty cool. It's not a humongous division, not like EMS or training, but it's definitely, got to manage a budget, got to take care of things. So I do that, and part of the fitness division as well, which was pretty cool that I got asked to do that. And yeah, just between all that, that's what I've been doing the last, almost 10 years with Lincolnshire. So it's been great, man. It's been great. I love it.
That's one thing that I've been kind of chasing, like information and stories about, is like getting recognized early in a career and then like taking off and running with it. I've noticed that a lot of people that I am fortunate enough to talk to, like on the show or really outside of here, that are into the job and get it, and they all kind of shared that same story where they got picked out early, and they're like, and somebody in the department went, we're gonna feed this person, and it goes miles, and it's pretty cool to see that, and it's always good to make an example of it, because like the more departments I think see that, the more likely like you said, it's uncommon. Maybe it can become more common, you know?
For sure. Yeah. And I think, like you said, you really got to.
I think it was obviously something of me, right? That I obviously a candidate for this. And then sometimes obviously timing works, right? If people are moving off the team, if there's a space opening, if there's a new team. But I think at the core, you got to be valuable. You know, you got to have the right traits for that, whether that's being a go-getter, whether it's showing interest, whether if you get asked to do something, whether you really want to do it or not, you know, kind of that's how I was initially. I didn't really even know, to be honest with you, like what TRT was.
Yeah.
You know, like
I was just approached with it, and I'm like, yeah, why not? Like,
why not get more involved? Why not become more of a well-rounded fireman? Why not? And it's been great because it's taught me a lot more than just, you know, fire suppression and rescue. So, yeah, I think we do need, we personally at our department do that pretty well. We try to pick out guys pretty quick that want to be a part of things, kind of like planning our succession plan, right? You know, kind of where I'm at now, is kind of that point. You know, I've been in these divisions quite a bit. I like it, but it's almost like, hey, it's time to pass the torch. Not that I'm some super salty guy, right? But hey, let's give another guy an opportunity if they want it to kind of follow this path, and I'll find something else,
Yeah.
right? I'm not
trying to dish all my stuff off, but it's like, let's not
hold on to it too long. Let's give a young guy the opportunity. Let's see how they could succeed. So we do that pretty well. Our chief staff does push that, kind of say, hey, what's your succession plan? Where do you see this division in the 1 to 3 years? So I think that's very important, because things do get stagnant, and you know, these young guys, they do have a lot to offer, right? They got different mindsets. They bring different things to the table, and we can't just neglect that. We have to, you know, embrace it. So yeah, definitely. I agree with definitely making it more of a norm, and pushing that for sure.
Yeah, it's a total cultural shift, right? Like, I feel like it's becoming more common. It's less of a, you know, hey, shut up and go sit in the corner. Like, it seems, it's obviously not everywhere. It's not sunshine and rainbows, you know, but like,
no.
but they're definitely, I think the shift in like, the go-to people, like the heavy hitters of a department, that's their mindset now, and it's becoming more common, at least from what I've experienced.
Yeah, no, I agree, 100%.
So, did your cousins influence you the most early in your career, or did you get latched on to somebody, you know, as you were going through like part-time early in your career? Who was someone that was really influential to you?
Sure. Yeah, like I mentioned, my cousins initially, but
There was a decent age gap. You know, like I said, they're coming up on retirement, so there was a little bit of an, especially obviously early on. I definitely meshed with them more now, as we get older. You know, but being younger, I didn't like super have a huge relationship with them in the fire service realm. To be honest with you, the person that I latched onto early on is still the same guy that I lash on to right now. And he's with Lincolnshire. He's a good buddy of mine. He just recently got promoted again, which is awesome for him, but sucks for me because he keeps going farther and farther away from me. But good buddy Eric Lavernier, he's just got promoted to deputy chief. I don't know if you know him.
Name,
Um,
but you know, yeah.
sure. Yeah. So Deputy Chief Lavernier, or Eric
Vernier, as he would like you to call him. I latched onto him pretty quick. He is, without trying to blow too much smoke, but I love giving flowers where they're deserved. Um, he's one of, if not the best human I've ever met in my life. First and foremost, he's a great fireman. You know, he loves the job, extremely passionate, very, very smart, very knowledgeable. He is your heavy hitter. He is your go-getter. He was the guy that would sit with me in the kitchen and talk with me till 3, 4 in the morning about anything and everything, when he didn't have to. Um, and I just watched him from afar. I watched him close. He is an unbelievable human, father. He's a phenomenal father. He's a phenomenal husband. The way he talks about his wife, the way he talks about his family. I pick up on those things, right? Like, we're not all perfect, right? We all have our things, but this guy, you would never catch him saying a bad thing about anybody that he's close to. And I just, I can appreciate that. Whether people are saying bad things about him, I've heard people bash him up and down. He knows about it. He's heard it, but he still treats them with the most up respect. So I really hound the human first. Obviously, I think that's the most important. He's phenomenal. I look up to him. I looked up to him from the start, and I will my entire career, because he hasn't changed from the day that I met him, even to the seat that he's sitting in now. As you know, he has to change somewhat because of the different collars he has, and this, that, the other.
Sure.
But at his core, man, he's a fireman's fireman. He loves the job. He loves people. He loves coaching. He loves teaching. And he's super into sports, which I am as well. So we connected on that level. But just an unbelievable person that if that's the guy, if you're coming into the fire service, that's the guy you want to latch on to, because he'll give it to you real. There was definitely times where he's like, hey, you need to get your shit together, whether, you're slacking in this area or slacking in this area. He held the expectations to me. I took a class with him early on. I think I had just got off probation. I think I just got off probation, and he just got promoted to lieutenant at the time. And we were close, but we weren't that good of friends yet. And he asked me, hey, you want to go take this class? And it was Rid Under Fire at IFSI, which to the day is one of the best classes, if not the best class I've ever taken.
Shoot. I lost you only for a sec. You were talking about Rid Under Fire, and
Sorry, brother. Yeah.
no, you're all good. You're all good, and I totally agree. It is the best class I've ever taken. I'm
okay,
with you
sweet.
all day on
I was
that.
gonna ask if you took it, so you definitely understand.
Oh yeah.
Best class I've ever taken by far. I mean, I've taken some good ones, but that was hands down nothing like it. Just from everything, the culture, the start, the finish, the instructors, the intensity, the heat, the challenge. It was unbelievable. But to go back, like I mentioned, Chief Lavernier had just got promoted lieutenant, and he asked me, kind of again, like we talked about. He's like, "Do you want to go to this class?" I had no idea. I'm like, "Well, sure, yeah." This guy asked me, I gotta go. Like, this is the guy, and he's asking me. And that's kind of, I think, where our friendship or bond, as you want to call it, started. We spent a week together, just us two. And I think I earned I know I did. I earned his respect that week. And he told me that, I know that there was some thoughts about who or what I was. I was a bigger guy, like muscular, so I came in like this ex-football player, kind of big, bulky, strong, and people immediately say, oh, can he do the job, or is he too big and too this, that, and the other? And he admitted to me, he says, that's how I thought too. But that week you showed me that you could talk the talk and you can walk the walk. And that was the biggest compliment for me. Not that you want validation, but we're humans. We do want validation.
Yeah. Yeah.
So especially from people that we look up to and respect. So I'm confident enough in myself to say, yeah, I do look for validation from the right people.
I was just going to say that. Yep.
And he was that guy for me. And we just bonded that week. And, that's where we kind of hit it off. And I've been, kind of following his lead, looking for his expertise. I go to him a lot of times for things. Obviously, things have changed over the years because, like I said, the position he's in. So, and that's what it is. But at the core, I know if I ever needed, he's the type of guy that I'm down in Texas and my car, is on the side of the road. I call him, and not to get into personal issues, but I went through a divorce years ago, and he was the first person I called. Not because I had friends that I knew for 20 years, my family members. He was the first person I called because of the type of person he is. So just I can't say enough about him. He's just a phenomenal dude, and he's done amazing for our department, and he'll continue to keep climbing that ladder, and hopefully be at the top one day.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, a lot of that's why I asked that question. Like, and you answered with two elements of it, right? Obviously, but like, I really like early on in someone's career, like you could tell if someone didn't get a mentor right away or latch on to somebody good right away. Like, and how important it really is to pair somebody up with the right person early in a career. Cause I wouldn't say it makes or breaks a career, but like there's some missed opportunity and missed time if you really like, how many years on did you go to rent under fire?
I think I was just off probation, so let's say a year and a half on.
Yeah.
A year and a half on.
For that class, that's pretty early, or people would tell you that's pretty early, right? And
Sure, I agree.
right, like that class is no joke. And so for someone to kind of light a fire under you early on, I mean, it's invaluable for sure.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And I think we do got to focus on that as a whole, to kind of do that buddy program or that, what do they call it, like a big brother program,
Yeah.
big sister program. I think it does do a lot, right? And not saying I wouldn't have turned out who I was, but I know that there was definitely times that maybe I didn't know what to do or I didn't know where to go, and this guy, put me in that direction, whether it was directly or indirectly. And I have to attribute a lot of my career success, whatever it is, to him because of that. And a lot of stuff, he did indirectly.
Yeah.
And whether he did or didn't, but it wasn't like straight to my face. It was just kind of watch what I do, and he backs it up. So, but yeah, definitely the Big Brother program I think is important, that we kind of push that, especially now, to be honest with you, man, because a lot of these guys, like when I came in, I had somewhat of a background, or I had family members,
Yeah.
or I went to the academy before I got hired. A lot of these guys are coming in and
Yeah.
they just want to do the job. They don't know about it, which is all good.
Yeah.
But you don't give them the right mentor, you don't give them the right leadership, they could easily go the other way. And now we might have lost somebody that was going to be super valuable, like you mentioned, lost opportunity.
Yeah.
So
They don't know what they don't know, right?
100%.
And you could easily miss out on, and I'm sure at some point, if they're really a high quality person, like it will run into them.
Right.
But if you miss out on a 30-year career is not that long when you really think about it, and like you miss 5 years out of that where you really don't do anything, that's a big chunk of time. Especially
sure.
like promotion, most people it's around the 10 to 15 year mark, right? If you go to lieutenant, and so you miss 5 years of that's half your blue shirt life, or 30 of your blue shirt life. And not that happens for everyone, obviously, but that's a big chunk of time to miss out on things.
Yeah.
So
100%. And I think it's our responsibility as, leaders to at least be evaluating that, not just sitting back and saying, well, this guy doesn't have it, or this girl doesn't have it, or we don't know. It's your job to pull it out of them to say, hey, to not miss it, right? Like you said, you're going to see it in the people that want you to see it. However, there are some on the fence people that need that. And you got to, as a good leader, you got to find out how to lead with certain people, and everybody's different. So you can't lead X like you did Y and Z. You have to kind of really own in on who you're leading and kind of where they came from. And again, where they're coming from now is way different from where they came from when we started. When I started, everybody either had family members that were in it, they were working part-time already, they knew the culture, they know how to act, they know what to say. That's not how it is anymore, which is totally fine. It's actually more on the leaders. It's more on our generation to take care of that, rather than just say, oh, the new generation is different. Well, no, there's that famous saying of there's no bad kids, there's just bad parents. There's no lazy kids, there's just lazy parents. And that's on us to change that and get the culture that we're complaining that's leaving back.
Spot on, man. I couldn't agree with you more. What would you say in your time here, noticing those changes in the new people coming on? What would you say would be the biggest challenge that comes with them, in terms of shifting the way? Like we're roughly the same age, we're roughly the same amount of time in the fire service total, like, and I definitely there's differences in the kids, and I say kids, but in the younger
Right.
people coming in. What would you say it would be the biggest challenge that we have to overcome with them?
Kind of just like I said, where
They're coming from, their background. I think just the schooling, the education has changed. I think society, social media has changed. There's a lot of opportunities out there to make money and do things that don't include, let's say, like a trade, right? And back in the, I'm not gonna say back in the day, but even, my short 12 years in the fire service, it was a lot of trades, whether if it was plumbing, carpentry, mechanics. I came from a minor construction background. I was just a laborer, but, I knew how to do these mechanical things that come with our job. I think the biggest challenge is a lot of these young guys are coming without that. And again, I don't think it's their fault. I think it's just that's the way the culture of society is going. I mean, it's a high tech, high media world, so they just don't have, I think, a lot of the things that we had, but we also don't have a lot of stuff that they have. So, we have to, the challenge would be to try to mesh those together, right? The fire service culture is a lot of this is the way it is, this is the way it's always been, which I'm okay with to an extent, right? Not when it's going to be neglecting certain things. There's a lot of great things that these youngsters have. But to answer your question, I think the biggest challenge is meshing, maybe your old school like trades, roughneck kind of guys, girls to that newer generation of high tech media, less trade skills that they have. And it's just, yeah, I see that as a challenge. Because at the end of the day, our job is hands-on. Obviously a lot of things have changed with emailing and all these different trainings via vector solutions and all this high-tech stuff. But at the end of the day, uh, it's a it's a hands-on blue-collar job,
Yeah,
So I think that's the biggest challenge, but it's definitely not one that can't be, maximized, optimized.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. So let's talk about. So you fairly recently made a rescue, you and your company, and we were kind of talking a little bit before about like grabs and fire rescue survey and all that other stuff. And I'm not going to totally recreate what grabs does, but I do want to hear about it, and I would love to hear kind of a slight play-by-play of what you guys did and kind of the end result of the victim that you ended up pulling out.
Yeah, yeah. So quick synopsis before I kind of break it down
Was obviously we had a fire, and we had two victims that were successfully rescued in this fully involved fire. That's kind of obviously the summary of it, but to kind of get the details, I was down at one of our like our south station, which for everybody listening, that's it's an engine ambulance, so it's majority of the time two and two, two on the engine, two on the ambulance as staffing goes up and down, whether it's injury, whether if it's just we don't have it, we run a jump company a lot. Which, for those that don't know what that is, obviously, we have three individuals down at this station: lieutenant, an engineer, and a backstep, and we jump from ambulance to the engine. Um, I was fortunate enough. Again, something that we don't have often is the same crew, right? Whether if it's guys are on trades and overtime and qualifications, I was blessed to be the officer down there with the same crew for about a solid month, which played a very big part in the success of this rescue. Um, my engineer was Chase Hellinger, who's about with us. I think he's like 3-4 years total, by about 5-6 years in the fire service. And then we had a guy named Michael Jack who was on probation. Luckily, he had already about 7 years in the fire service. He was with Rockford for a good amount of time, so he wasn't your first day on the job probie, but still new to us. But we had been training a lot. We usually do train a lot as it is, as a department as a whole, but we were training quite often with our new guys, and Michael Jack was obviously on our ship or on my crew, and we had been training, and that week specifically, we were going over our skid load. I know you know what that is, but our skid load, that specific line, we were pulling over and over and over and over and getting imperfections, which again had a huge part in the success. So we were down at the station, normal day. It was right after dinner. I was in the office doing a couple reports. The guys were kind of doing their own thing, making their phone calls after dinner. And initially, it came in as a kitchen fire. And I talked about this before, and not to be complacent, but sometimes just the nature of our job, we get called for a kitchen fire, and it's bullshit, right? Like, let's just call it what it is. Whether it's a pot of meat, whether if it's just smoke from cooking, but this just felt a little different when it came in. It just did. Whether, I don't know what it was. I mean, obviously, I think it was because it wasn't. That aura. Whatever you believe in, it just felt different for all of us. We all came from different parts of the station, but when we met on the truck floor, we just knew that it was something legit, and again, intuition, what it is, or, it is what it is. But our probie just phenomenally dressed, super quick. He was in his seat before I was in mine. Engineer was in his seat before I was. Close the door, look over, everybody's in. We're out the door. And I'm doing my typical officer type, pre-call stuff, whether even if it's an EMS call or a fire. I'm talking about, hey, here's our hydrants to my engineer. Hey, this is the area that we're going, which for us was a very common area for us. We go there quite often. It's an area with townhomes, sets of like 4 or 5 of them together. Fairly small, maybe like anywhere from 1,000 to 1,800 square foot townhomes. So we knew we were going. Check with my engineer. Hey, you know where you're going. Yes, obviously. Hey, you got a hydrant, one house down. Hey, if we got something going for real, we're going to pull that skid load. Kind of just talking about everything we got going on. It was just about getting dark out. Fairly cool out. I think it was maybe like 50 degrees. And as we, funny, where we're at in the station, obviously it got toned out. And as we're going, as we're reading the CAD notes. These are another thing that I vocalize to the crew as well, because they can't see these notes.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the right seat, so it's kind of like they're waiting for me, like, what is this? What is this? So very quickly it got verbalized that there was people trapped, right? So the caller was the husband. There was a language barrier, but it came in as caller is the resident saying that his wife's still inside. He sees flames. So engine starts, kind of revving up a little bit. Hey, we got something for real here. And this was a full station, full department dump on all of our resources. So where we're coming from is the south side, and the north side department, there's an intersection, right? There's an intersection where we often meet.
Oh, man.
So it's where this is at. This is our still, right? So I
Looked at my engineer, and he already knew before I even had to say anything. I look over at him. I said, "Don't let the squad beat us through that intersection." And he just said, "Hey, my foot's to the floor, boss. I'm going as fast as we can." I said, "Oh, I know you are." Sure as shit, we were pulling up, squad's there, and I said, "Go. We're taking this fucking turn. Sorry." So they let us go. And which was the smart thing to do. We were in the engine, they were in the squad, so that at the end of the day, they knew the play too. And yeah, man, so we pulled down the street about a quarter mile away, rolled down the windows, try to get those senses going, and we could smell something pretty quick. Could smell something going. Battalion was right behind me. We were coming up from like the Charlie side, so we got a big whiff, black smoke coming from the Charlie side, which is obviously the rear. And Battalion upgraded it right away. I was personally going to wait till I got around to the front to get my size up, just because I wanted to see. But with his experience, him being in that seat, he says, "Hey, I saw smoke. I ain't waiting," which was great play on Chief's part. And he was right. We made that corner, man. And sure as shit, it was like from a movie, guy standing at the front door, doors open, unfortunately, for them. And, fire, flames, smoke blazing out the front door. He's standing there very, disoriented. So as the first engine, my engineer knew pull past, we're going to pull that skid load off the back end. Hydrant was probably 50, 75 feet away. It was a great location. As soon as I can get out, from when I got out of the right seat, I said, "Hey, pull the skid load. I'm going to go talk to the homeowner. I'll meet you at the front door." By the time I went to the front door, talked to the homeowner, he says, "My wife's inside. She's about straight ahead." And again, he's coughing, black soot's coming out of his mouth. He can't really, his eyes are watering. He was obviously inside at this point. And my goal was to obviously get as much information as I could from him at that point. Who else is inside? Is there anybody else? Where is she? Nobody else. She's inside. Okay. At that point, my back step, the other engineer, and then the other officer from the squad had the skid load pulled, flaked, charged, and bled out, and positive water within 2 minutes. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, I had some kick-ass guys on the crew, plus our training, plus circumstances. Just everything was great. So like I said, we pulled that line. Everybody was just playing their part, just like literally like clockwork. It was unbelievable. I masked up. I told my back step, "Hey, bleed that line. I'm going to go inside real quick, give a little quick sweep," right? So I go in and completely bank down to the floor. I mean, you got fire coming out the eaves, smoke all the way down, couldn't see anything, and actually was extremely high heat. I actually had to check if I had my hood on, because I was like, "Oh shit, like it's fucking hot."
Yeah.
So I made it, about 10 feet in to give a good sweep. And I couldn't go any further, without a hose line, just because it was pretty hot. So I looked to my back step and I said, "Hey, we're going to go in. You're going to cool this little corridor down." I go, "I don't know where the fire is at yet, but just cool me down until we could kind of, figure shit out here." When we got in, we realized it was like a horror conditions, pretty bad. We were about 6-8 inches off the ground with just, no disrespect to the family, just stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
Stuff. I mean, I'm talking newspapers to the ceiling, everything, which in our world obviously causes a whole nother, element. So I relayed that to command, that we got horror conditions. I got to start thinking about that. There's basements in these joints. What's that load looking like? Obviously, there's more shit to burn. But my main goal was to find this, the wife, right? So luckily she was in and out of consciousness. So she was screaming on and off, right? So I could hear screaming, I could hear things, couldn't see anything. About 20 feet straight in, I ended up finding her, and I was on top of her, which I didn't know, right? So it ended up being a kitchen fire, but I was on top of her, had flames going over me, pretty hot. And I don't know till the day, I don't know if she pulled the debris on top of her to kind of protect her. I don't know if when she fell, it fell on her. I think it did help her a little bit. So when I got to her, she went unconscious. So when I went to go grab her, I realized, hey, I only got about 20 20 feet to go. I'm very confident in my physical abilities and my training. I said, hey, I'm not messing around with any type of, webbing or any type of, I'm not going to, wait for another crew member.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm like, it's just me and my guy. He's got the line. I got this. So I just picked her up, bear hugged her from the back, and I walked out. As I'm walking out, our ambulance crew came in. Firefighter Haltman and Teddy Kazios met me. I said, what do you need? I just said, hey, get me out. Just lead me out of the house. Led me out. I went flying out the front door. Luckily, I ran into a wall, which I kind of braced my fall. But that was the initial hot grab on it. I passed her off to the officer of the squad, which was Steve Burnell, and kind of just gave him a face-to-face. Hey, man, she's in and out of consciousness. We need to get her to an ambulance right away. Obviously, relayed that to command. Hey, we got the second victim out. And they took it from there from the outside. My main goal at this point was to get back inside.
Yeah.
I had a probie on the line, and my first concern was I got to get back to him, right? So she's out, I'm done with her, and I made my way back in. And by the time I got back in, the guys just had everything just dialed in. Fire was out. They were already overhauling. They were just going to town. Another great crew, right? Like, just couldn't ask for better.
Yeah.
So that was really, the main part of it. It obviously, there was more involved with it, right? We had other crews. Our truck crew came in, did another search, did some vent, did a lot of my communications for me. Senior lieutenant on the truck kind of took over communications just because he realized I was pretty taxed at this point. With the rescue, with the crew inside, with obviously fire extinguishment, and he was just kind of relaying everything to command. Took over that role, which was obviously phenomenal. Which he was still working. They were still doing things, but our initial crew had everything done. Obviously we had support from Wheeling, Deerfield, and Northbrook, and some other towns, obviously. But that first crew. From engine 52, my engine, and then the squad, the truck battalion, knocked it out of the park, man. I mean, it was so awesome to be a part of, to see, not only to save, two people's lives, but to see our operation go as we train.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a success, and I don't say that, we get that, right? But people say, oh, that was a success. You just, somebody's life just got ruined. Yes, in the scenario of a fully involved fire, when a lady is trapped, that's the best case scenario. And it felt damn good to be a part of a crew and a department that operates like the real deal and handle business that night. And I couldn't be prouder of the crew, but just the department as a whole.
Yeah.
It was awesome, man. So we just did the regular cleanup after that. This house was torched, man. It was a small joint. It was only probably about 1,500 square feet, but with the amount of stuff in the house and put a rescue in there, it was pretty intense for the good 6 minutes. But that was the nuts and bolts of it, and I'm just happy that obviously it turned out the way it did. I was very confident in my role as the first in company officer. Attribute that to obviously the guys that have come before me, the lieutenants, the officers that I've looked up to, that I've trained, that I've sat behind, that I've listened to, whether that's at my department, whether that's at NIPSTA, whether that's the guys in the city, everybody that I'm affiliated with. I pull something from everybody, and that night I needed all of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and it does obviously help when you have a great crew, whether it's experienced or not, because I had 2 probationary guys and the rest of the guys were, a couple years on, but take the job serious, train all the time. You're not scared of anything. And at the end of the day, we did our job. We just did our job that night, and it was awesome. So it was a great to be a part of. And I couldn't be prouder of everybody involved. and the support is just phenomenal. So, yeah, man.
I mean, yeah, the end result's fantastic. I mean, for sure. I
Yeah,
got a couple questions about it. So,
yeah.
the first one, your department, and I am stealing this from Grabs, so whatever. But I love the question, so I'm going to ask you anyway. What kind of culture around search does your department have? Do you guys have a standard of how you search things in training? How's it talked about? Like, in terms of like assignments, that kind of stuff. What's the culture around search in your department?
Yeah. So, to be honest with you, I'd say more. Sorry, I think I lost you for a sec.
Just for a little bit, but I think we're good now.
You there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. I thought I
No
lost
worries.
you. To be honest with you, culture is more. I think it's company officer driven, right? It's scenario. Am I losing you?
It's like little bits. It kind of pops
Let me
out.
switch off. Let me switch off here. This internet is kind of going in and out. My bad.
No, you're good, man.
All right. Yeah, so it's company officer driven, scenario driven about search. Obviously we result back to our right hand search, left hand search, kind of that mentality, but also depending on your crew, right? So we obviously go to the most danger, the most what's the right word? High profile area first, fire first, rescue first. So that was our initial mentality.
Sure.
Hey,
Yeah.
I know an idea where this victim is.
Yeah.
That was our goal, and that's what I relayed to my crew is, hey, I did initially say, hey, we're going to do a right hand search, and when I went in.
You're still there. I didn't lose you. Maybe I'm just so
okay.
stoic.
You messaged it because no, you're freezing, so it's making me. I'm like, man, is he just really that calm?
Maybe I'm just steady as a rock. I mean, you're still moving. I still see you.
Okay,
So
I'll try to just keep going without.
if I totally lose you, I'll text you or something. We'll figure
Okay.
it out.
Okay, so yeah, to be honest with you, man, I told the crew initially, hey, we're gonna go right hand search, but I didn't want to get too wrapped up in a traditional search because I knew or had an idea that we had a victim.
Yeah.
So in that case, I'm going directly to the victim, right? Or the area that the husband told me. I'm not going to waste any more time. So I did initially go right, but with the hoarder conditions, there was some newspapers all the way to the ceiling. I knocked those down, and what that was almost like a little second living room, and I kind of X'd that out. I said, you know what? Fuck it. We're not even going in there. I'm going right to where I think the most risk is. And, that just came from my experience, my knowledge, and my intuition that that's where we should go.
Yeah.
I could have been wrong, but,
I can tell
I
you,
wasn't.
rescue survey backs you up 100%. So whatever data they pulled from that, it's common areas. So it's hallways and it's bedrooms. So
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to the right place. You're going where they're supposed to be, right? Like
Right.
that's so you're spot on with that. Your instincts would be backed up by there's a fucking mosquito in here. It's driving me. Sorry, I'm breaking character now.
I think it also, to kind of touch a little bit, it comes with, a lot of pre-planning as well. whether that is acquired training, pre-planning, or that is on EMS calls and being very aware of these, surroundings that you're in, these homes that you're in. And we preach that a lot, so going into this place, we all kind of knew what the layout of this townhome was, right? So when he says, hey, she's down the hallway, I kind of knew, hey, there's no bedrooms on the first floor. All the bedrooms are on the second floor. If she's on the first floor, she's going to be in that living room or the hallway. You kind of just gauge your intel, and that's kind of very important as a company officer to point that out, is to get that intel, right? To take a step back and make sure you get that information, right? So I would also preach to anybody in that position, that especially new actors and new lieutenants, because we're still used to being so gung-ho, hands-on, everything, that we might just blow past that and say, I'm not talking to you. I'm going to go inside because this is where I got to get the work done.
Yeah.
However, with that intel, led me to the right spot, which, in my opinion, and this could be a fact, saved her life. Because any longer, unfortunately, I think she would have passed, because she had some pretty bad smoke inhalation as it was. So, to long-winded answer your question, right? I think it's
No, you're
it
good,
comes
man.
with,
Yeah.
it comes with definitely what scenario you're in, what kind of crew you have, what intel you've been given, how confident are you in general, right? And those are the main things, And like you said, the common areas. Be very aware of what you're going into, right? If this individual said, hey, she's upstairs in the bedroom, I'm telling you, that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going to go. So, that was definitely, our approach. And luckily that it panned out, and I don't think it was by luck, right? I think it would had to do a lot with what I just explained. So, yeah.
Was 2 and 2 out a factor? Do you guys follow 2 and 2 out? And then was there any conversation about that? Because it sounds like you guys searched off a hose line, right? Kind of, roughly. And then, like the next crew, what did they kind of do? But more
Sure.
about 2 and 2 out.
Yeah, so we do follow 2 and 2 out. And then it is, X nulled, whatever you want to call it, when there's a known rescue, right? So I was backed by that. Our department backs that. Our chief backs that. He's very vocal about that. Obviously, 2 and 2 out's very serious, and we will follow that unless there's a known rescue, right? So initially, I didn't follow it, but I was following the rules, but not the 2 and 2 out, because I knew that there was a rescue. So, as the crews were coming up, I knew that they were going to be ready in a sense, and I wasn't wasting time. Whether you want to get technical about who's 2 in and 2 out, whether we count our engineer, as a personnel, but the quick answer is no. There was a known rescue. I could easily go in by myself, or just with my with my backstep, and I'm going to do that 10 out of 10 times, because I signed up for this, right? I signed up for that person's life is more important than mine in that moment. But no rules were broken. We definitely did what was under the rules that we were allowed to. But yes, we do follow that. Maybe if there was no known rescue, right? If both individuals were outside, maybe I would have waited for another set of ready guys to go. But that wasn't our scenario, So
I'll tell you. I mean, I guess it was a half-loaded question, because I'm all fired up about 2 and 2 out, but I think it's a load of horse shit. So
yeah.
So there's that. But you kind of, in a way, kind of proves my point is, like, you're not thinking about that. You're going to work, right? Like, it's time to work.
Yes.
And, maybe we can talk about or you can have Vitaly talk to you about 2 and 2 out too, because I'm sure we can both talk your ear off about
the political answer, right? The political answer is yes, we follow it, and we do.
You're with it.
But if I have to break that rule to save a life, write me up all day. I mean, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
And I'll live with that, and I don't even think, I don't know if our chief staff backs us, because they were once in our shoes too. So they don't forget that.
That's the
So,
important part of it, right? Is you get to support, right? Nobody's going to hang you up because you're doing the right
nope.
thing, right? You're doing what you were
Yes,
sworn to do. Yeah.
for
No,
sure.
that's
Yep.
awesome to have that.
Yeah.
To at least know, right? Like they're trusting you to make a decision, right?
Yeah, and that's great to have. Like, not only they set that culture,
We're going to back you, right? We're very, and some things change, right? When they say, hey, this is company officer driven. We value our officers. We trust them. They're going to make the right decisions, right? Now you have to earn that. You have to show that you can do that. But at the end of the day, that's the culture they set. So I'm not worried about getting hung up. One, because I'm doing the right thing, right? If I'm doing something reckless, yeah, I should be reprimanded for it. But it is controlled chaos, right?
Yeah.
it's controlled recklessness. And like I said,
If that were to go that way, I'll take the write up all day. If you know Jane Doe is alive,
Yeah.
because of that. So, but I don't see our staff doing
doing that. Like I said, they've been in our shoes. My fire chief specifically has had a grab himself. So uh, they would back us, and I would hope they would.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
Invaluable support.
Yeah.
Last thing about the graph were there any department changes that happened afterwards? Like for us in the Burbs, it's kind of a rare occurrence, right? Did you guys see anything as an organization that maybe changed as a result of what you learned from it, or did nothing happen? Not that that's a bad thing if nothing happened, but
Yeah. So yeah, couple things did.
To kind of like what we talked about, pre going live is I just lost my train of thought. um,
talking about like what might have changed based
Oh,
on the
sorry.
result. I got you. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. So yes, one of our box cards,
we kind of noticed that we did have a little bit of an issue with an ambulance on where they were for that rescue, right? So we had, I believe it was Arlington Heights Ambulance 4. Now, there was a bunch of reasons why, right? They're a very busy department. As we know, ambulances are out running calls. Like, they're running EMS calls. They're not heavily available. But we did a little bit of digging, and our chief staff made the change pretty quick. I mean, we're talking within, I think, a week or two to get a closer ambulance so we didn't have that little delay. There wasn't much of a delay, but like we were talking about, what could we get better, right?
Yeah.
So
did it make all the difference? Maybe it did, but
maybe in the future, right? So let's say, hey, maybe that extra minute does matter, right? And we could change it. So we did change up like a box card on I think it was either a closer ambulance or an additional, or it was both.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak
out of term 100%, but I believe it was an additional.
and a closer, to not have that delay, which I think is great. We realized an issue, we brought it to the staff, the chief staff made their change. That's how things should happen, right? Like, that's, again, kudos to our department for listening to the members and making the change when appropriate. And again, to nitpick, if you want to talk about my execution, there was some things that I maybe could have changed, right? We talked about the hose load that I pulled, right? And some would have said, hey, we could have pulled a cross lay for this, right? As we know, a skid load is it's 500 feet of 2.5 connected to an 1.75 inch. You have to break it down. It's a little bit more of a load to handle. Cross lay is obviously pre-connected. It's straight to the shot, 200 feet, 1.75 inch. Little easier hand line to maneuver. After critiquing, walking through the home, making sure, hey, 200 feet would last it. Hindsight, would the cross lay been a little bit better? Maybe, yeah, possibly.
Sure.
I chalked it up to a couple things. One,
Like I mentioned, we had been training on that hose load for 2 weeks straight. So I knew that he had that hose load down like the back of his hand. And where the station where I'm at, it's my primary line, because we do have a lot of big setbacks, a lot of big homes. So that is the majority of the time that's the line I'm pulling. So that was first in my head. And I will tell you this, because I'm honest, that I didn't know if it would, the 200 feet would allow to make.
And I'm okay with that. Like, now do I know? Yeah.
But I didn't run into a house fire in this house prior to that night. So I didn't know. And as an officer and a new officer, I didn't want to come short, right? I know if I have too much hose, that's okay. But not having enough is a big issue. So it was a mixture of the line. I knew that we were pretty dialed in on that line, and I also wasn't 100% sure if it would or wouldn't last or make it. So we did critique that. Like I said, we did critique a little bit about some placement of the rigs. Now again, it's all different. We run this fire again tomorrow, it's going to be 100% different. So
We did the best for what we had. Our first engine,
obviously I was on it, so it was perfect. No, where it was placed was great. The next company was our squad. Big, I know you're familiar with our squad probably, so it's a big box. It's very bulky. It's in the way. It ended up clogging up a little bit of area, so we couldn't get our truck in. But hindsight, it worked. And is it the end of the world? No, but I said this when we did our critique. I think we scored probably about a 95% that night. Could we have maybe got a 97 or 98 for sure? And I'm always looking for that next
1%, because 1%
makes the difference. So could we have, in the beautiful world, the squad pulled the other way so the truck can back down? Absolutely. Did we need our stick at this place? No, but that's the way we practice, right? We pull past with the engine, truck takes the front of the building. That is our order. Like, that's kind of how we operate. So should we have done that? Sure. But, that's that nitpick. That's that nitpick. And,
and that's how you got to be. If you want to be better,
if you want to be the best, you should not be content. So I'm all on board on opening it up. And I still am, to viewers, to listeners. Hey, do this, do that. I had a lot of guys back me. No, I would have pulled that skid load. And then I had a few guys say, no, I would have pulled the cross lane. Okay, cool. So we definitely changed some things up, like operations wise, as far as the box cars, stuff like that. And then maybe even just tactically, making a few different changes as well, but not many, man, because I hate to say it went flawless. So
hey, there's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, but still, you did have some things like you're talking about. It's okay to do really well and still critique it and have other things, right? There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, another thing to also add on,
and I want to point this out, because of the suburbs, the way we run, a lot of our crews, link up with each other, right? So our squad, responds with ambulance, and they become a crew. We ran into a little bit of an issue with that. I pulled. This is even more unicorn than normal. We had 3 on our ambulance. That wasn't a jump company, right? He's a paramedic. He was a paramedic student, but he's our backstep at the same time. He's doing his ride time, but also
he is part of the crew, so he's not a student. So
I pulled him. He's a probie. I pulled him onto our crew, and I didn't verbalize that as well as I should have, right? I should have just said, I verbalized it. Hey, third member for ambulance 51 is now going to be with engine 52. I should have just called him engine 52 from the start, right? I talked to command, my battalions, about this, and they said, hey, we don't care. Command doesn't care who it is. They just want to know. I'm not going to say they shouldn't care who it is, but they don't care that I stole them from ambulance. They want to know how many, are on the new engine 50.
Right. And it was a great learning experience for me as a
new officer. I was like, I didn't think about that, my bad,
Did anything bad happen out of it? No. But again, 1%,
Yeah.
1% better. And I want to be open about that for that next actor and that next officer to be like, oh, hey, remember when Alex, kind of fucked that up? Like, I'm not going to do that. Just because maybe it will, fuck up an accountability chart next time, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely some things. There's always something to learn about. But at the end of the day, man, we knocked it pretty flawlessly.
That's awesome. That's yeah. Yeah. Really cool for sure. Um, yeah, I think that was pretty much it about talking about the rescue that you guys made. Again, like fantastic work. I mean, so I'm a big rescue survey buff, and I love looking at that information and seeing how it applies to actual real rescues. And you know, you said the number 6 minutes. 6 minutes is usually when people start to fall off of their survivability. You know, you said that the crew was kind of in and working within 2 minutes. Like those are big numbers that are really are a credit to your guys' work that you put out. It's pretty cool to hear things line up with what's going on in the rest of the country, with at least what's getting reported back. So
Right.
top notch
Right.
job.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, man. That time, and I could be even, wrong on the exact time, but if I'm wrong, it's actually going to be less.
Sure. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we had the exact numbers, but it was I had them dialed in when this was super fresh, but I believe, we had water on the fire and victim out. It had to have like I said, been 4 to 6 minutes.
Yeah.
And you said that was the difference. If it would have been 7 to 9 minutes, 9 to 10 minutes, I would assume that she would be deceased.
Yeah, there'd be a real good shot, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't remember the numbers with arrests or whatever, but I thought it was like every 2 minutes or something with cardiac arrest. I don't remember that number off the top of my head, but yeah, like it's some serious shit. I mean, we're talking not a lot of time between success and
Yeah. Seconds, seconds matter. Seconds really do matter. So, turnout times,
Yeah.
everything. Turnout times, getting your gear on, having your head dialed in, pulling that line how it's supposed to be, all that kind of stuff matters, dude. And it's just that is an attribute to, again, our culture of training, the seriousness of it, and then the seriousness of the guys that love their job and don't just, show up because it's their day to show up on that third day. They're there to do everything that they signed up for. And that's our culture, man. And I'm super proud to wear our patch and to be a part of our department because of that.
Hell yeah. So we're gonna shift over to fitness now, and I told you one of the things that I had heard. So you came in, you spoke about nutrition and fitness and wellness when I was taking a company fire officer class at NIPSTA, and you mentioned something. I was a new father at the time, and I was still trying to figure stuff, and I'm still trying to figure stuff out. So it's not like I figured it out, but you had mentioned something, and it was about there's time periods in the day where no one needs something from you, right? Like as a father, as a husband, as a firefighter, as all these things, someone needs something from you at any moment of the day. And you had mentioned that when you work out is that's the time where no one needs anything from you, so you can focus on it. And that really stuck with me, and about making that time, and you might have to sacrifice some things, but you kind of talk about some of that and how you kind of came to that situation.
Yeah. So fitness in general health it's always been a big part of my life from the get-go. I started playing sports real early. Again, it was in my family. I had tons of uncles, cousins, grandpas that played in the NFL, played high-end college football. So sports, fitness, health was just engraved at an early age. I was super lucky, super blessed to have that. So bringing that into the fire service, obviously was very beneficial. But I think it's one of, if not the most important thing in life and in the fire service. And you can get into a debate
about training. Training is the most important. Fitness is I'm about right on. I could go either way. Obviously, I'm a big fan of training. And I think, you could be out of shape and know your job really well and be successful, or you could be less experienced and not know your job as well and be very in shape and get away with it. So you can go either way. But I think, kind of just drawing in on your point was you got to make that time, whether it's given or not. And you got to make that time for yourself, because it's people think it's selfish. I was told that for a long time, whether it was in the fire service or in my personal life, that, hey, you're selfish. You're spending time at the gym. You're doing all these things. And it is the farthest thing from being selfish. It is truly selfless. Now, don't think that I don't think that it feels selfish at times. There's times I haven't gone, or I rushed through a workout because I feel bad, or this, that, and the other. But you got to be your best self for everybody else. And once you become a father, it ain't about you anymore. It's just not about you. And we always say that saying, I'll do anything for my family. I'll do anything for my kids. Well, will you stay alive for your kids? Will you be healthy for your kids? That is a real thing, right? But yeah, it does take sacrifice. And I did actually get some heat, initially early on in the fire service about, working out. And I think culture has changed a little bit. But I think, and this came from the older, I think even way before my time, that it was almost like a luxury if you got to work out, right? If you did, it was almost a luxury. It wasn't mandatory. But I think that's changed a little bit. And I think instead of having to sacrifice and find the time, you should be given that time. So yeah, I just think you got to make that time. And again, like I mentioned in that class, it's the one time that nobody needs you. Now maybe at the firehouse is a little different, especially what role you're in, and I've seen that even because, from a blue shirt to an officer, that yes, as a blue shirt, I can get through an entire workout, calls depending, and nobody wants to bother me. But now it's phone calls or this or that, which that's the role I signed up for. So I'm okay with that. But you got to make the time, man. You got to make the time, both outside and wherever that time is. So for me, I look at my day is not complete until I look at the next day, until I plan for that next day. So some days I'm working out at 3-4 in the morning because that's what my day calls. Some days I work out at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Some days I work out at 4. Some days, but I'll look at my day and say, okay, I have this. My priorities come first. So my children, my side businesses, my family, all these things. Okay, I got all this going on. Where can I get a workout in? Okay, that's where it's going to be. And there's no negotiating, right? So if it's got to be at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's got to be at 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's the difference of being disciplined and being in working out or exercising when it's convenient. And we as firefighters need to change our mentality of, I'll work out when it's convenient. No, you're going to work. You should be working out when it's necessary, when it's with, can't think of, a good word for it, but it should be a priority.
Yeah, I understand exactly where you're coming from. Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Our physical part of our job is physically demanding,
and I'll say this, that rescue, to go tie it back, I'm so confident in my physical ability and my strength and what I've put my body through for 2 decades, that I knew I didn't need anybody else to get her out.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, most of the times we rescue,
we do it with 2 people. But in that scenario, I didn't need that. And I'm confident and there that night, it resonated more than ever that this is why it's important, right? And I'll never throw anybody under the bus, but there's probably some people out there that couldn't do what I did, right? And I'm not saying you have to beat me or you have to have that level of fitness, but you should take that approach that if I get called for that scenario, can I handle that? I always took it as who's the biggest guy in our department and could I handle him on my own? That's how I approached it, you know. And when I first started, we had a guy with us, just a bigger guy, not, you know, throw him under, but and the guy was a great fireman. He was a great officer, like just, but he's a big fella, right? And we're talking just big, tall, 6'4", you know, 300 pound. I said, that's the guy that I'm training for.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's, you know, that's the mentality that I've always had with fitness and everything.
And then there's obviously the mental part of it, right? I also train clients on the outside. I've owned a personal training company since 2016. I've been a trainer since I was 19. But the mental strength and the mental clarity that you get from fitness, I think now trumps the physical. And with our job, as you know, the statistics show that our mental illnesses and our mental capacity, whether it has to do with the job, the food that we've been poisoned with, you know, obviously a lot of the social economics of everything, and the mental game is harder for people in general. Now you throw one of the most stressful jobs in the world onto that. Fitness is the number one cure for that, right? The statistics show there's no medicine, there's no drug, not even heroin, that gives you the amount of dopamine that a exercise workout will give you, you know? And that's proven with data that there's more dopamine release, there's more serotonin release than a hit from heroin than you would get from a workout. And if you can't wrap your head around that, then I don't know. You know, I'm not saying you have to do heroin to get that comparison, but obviously we know heroin's a very addictive drug, and
Sure.
my comparison,
You know, but to kind of go off track, I just think mentally
we need it mandatory. That is a whole nother conversation, right? Because we get into, and I understand we live in a, you know, heavy political union type job, which I'm not going to get into that, but you know, it's always never been mandatory because of that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are some good reasons, you know, why I can't think of any, and I would think that I could argue against them. However, it is what it is. But I would love to see them become mandatory for our job. You know, and some
countries have that, right?
Some states do
you know,
that, man. I mean,
Yeah.
some states require that, and even with unions, like it's just part of fit for duty. Actually means something. You know what I mean? Instead, and there's actually something behind that instead of just. I don't even know. Like, nobody can really explain what fit for duty is in a lot of
Sure.
departments,
And I
right?
think-
Because they don't quantify it.
Bless you.
I thought it was going to come. I muted my mic.
No, but you're right. I think the verbiage
verbiage of fit for duty is the holdup, right? You know, who to say that I'm not fit for duty and stuff like that. Legalities, you know, it doesn't say in my job description that I have to do this, that, and the other. I would disagree, but we don't even need to go there. But I would love to see it mandatory, not in a punitive way, you know. But it's hard to toe that line.
Yeah.
And
I think I can understand that from a chief staff perspective. You know, and unfortunately, a lot of the insurance stuff doesn't want you to do it as well, which is crazy
Yeah,
to
I
me.
know.
It blows my fucking mind.
Because obviously there is some injuries that happen during exercise and working out, right? We've had them personally. And some insurance companies want to say, hey, you can't do this, that, and the other. And it's like, no, you need to be doing more of it because of that reason, right?
Yeah.
Um,
We're not allowed to do
So-
box jumps. Right?
Right.
'Cause
So,
we can't call it CrossFit.
right.
Okay,
you
but
know,
we could do the same stuff and just not
Right.
call it CrossFit. Like, it's so
Right.
Yeah.
We're talking legalities and policies again like that, which there has to be them. I understand, right? But we can't go in there and be reckless. And I am a believer. Maybe early on I wasn't, as far as how much effort you're giving in the gym. And I'm not saying that we got to go in there and you got to max. I would speak against it, to be honest with you, to go in there and max bench, max squat, max deadlift on your duty day.
Sure.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Have I done it? Yes, I've done it. But I've also learned as time's gone on that I don't do that. But I've also am a different breed as far as what I can handle because of my past.
Sure. Yeah.
So I've been able to do that. But I wouldn't say to do that. But I would also say don't not squat, don't not box jump, don't not deadlift. You know what I'm saying? Don't not overhead press. But maybe let's just do, let's get our muscles building. Let's tear our muscles, but let's not completely be exhausted. Obviously, we have a job to do, right? But you got to be willing to want to do that, because to me it creates excuses and it creates voids to non-exercise.
Oh yeah, dude.
You know.
I'm. It's so easy, and I can't sit here and say that I've been great as of late. And I don't think we talked about what's going on in my family life with my kids right now. But like, you kind of like, it's real easy to get kicked I was gonna say kicked in the dick, but whatever. We can. It's really easy for life to do that to you, and it's really easy to fall off. Like when I went to Rent or Fire, like I got my shit together. I lost 30 pounds. I was running like. And I'd never done that. I mean, it's not that I was out of shape, but like I was never like at that level of athleticism. Like we were kind of talking, like I didn't get the sports life like you did, right? Like, I played like house league, and then I picked up hockey like afterwards and played like beer league hockey, but never like that structured sports world. Like in high school, all we did was powerlifting. That was it. There was nothing else besides powerlifting. So it was all 8 reps. You know what I mean? And it was maxes and that kind of, and not that that's a bad form of workout, but that's not athleticism in the fire service, right?
Correct.
It's athletic, but it doesn't translate as well. And so like, I made a change. We're getting it back. I'm getting it back. My one of my good buddies actually gave me a bunch of gym equipment. It's in my garage now. So talk about time when no one needs you. It's right there now, and so sometimes you just got to make some moves to figure it out. And but yeah, I mean you're spot on with what you're talking about.
Yeah, and everybody has seasons, right? Like mention about different times in your life that maybe you can't do it as much. I would argue to say those are the times that you need to do it more, right? Like, and I can prove it to you, right? And it's easier said than done, right?
Sure.
I'm not saying there's times that I can't get to it. Like I literally don't have enough time in the day. However, I know, and I'm disciplined enough to be like, well, I got to make up for it then. I either got to rearrange this or rearrange that, or sometimes I got to piss somebody off because I got to go to the gym and they needed me here or there. Well, trust me, you're going to be more happy when I come back in an hour that you're going to get 100% of me than you got the 20% of me when I didn't, so we have to toy that line of like, hey man, I'm super busy. Hey, I just had a kid, or hey, all this stuff. And to me, that doesn't matter. There's always going to be something. There will always be something in your life. Whether if it's I just got on probation, well, I need to do this, or now I'm having a kid, or I just bought a house and I got to do this. There's always going to be something. So you have the mentality of that's life, and you got to make it a priority for everyone around you, right? I need to be the best fireman for the people around me. I can't come to work and be the heel. I don't want to be the weakest link. I need to be the strongest link. Same thing with my family, and you're setting an example, right? So like the way I live my life is feeding through my children. My children are in phenomenal shape. They're phenomenal athletes. God-given gifts, absolutely. But not because they truly want to. I'll tell you that. No kid wants to do that kind of stuff. I don't even like working out. And I've worked out consistently for 20 years. And I don't even like it. But I like the benefits of it. And we need to change that mentality of
you know, the sacrifice part of it, right? Like I need to sacrifice now for the betterment later, whatever your why is, right? I want to be a better fireman. I want to look better. There's nothing wrong with wanting to look better, right? Because if I look better, I feel better. If I feel better, I treat people better. If I treat people better, I get more out of it. I tell this to clients that I train, that I've trained, huge multimillionaire sales clients. And I said, listen, I will make you more money by you training with me. Well, how would you do that, Alex? Well, if you look better and you feel better, you're going to treat people better. You're going to talk better. You're going to have more confidence. You're going to go into a meeting and you're going to have a little bit more bravado. You're going to maybe say something that you wouldn't have said. You would have stepped into a realm that you wouldn't have stepped because you have confidence. Now all of a sudden you get that promotion. Now all of a sudden that client says, "Man, this guy's got. I'm going with him instead of her, or whatever." So it goes in every aspect, right? And first impressions mean everything, right? So, this town whatever town you work in, I want to walk in and I want them to be like, hell yeah, that's what I pay for. Those are the tax. That's what I'm paying for. Absolutely. Right. So, yeah. And again, the mental aspect is huge. Like,
Yeah, dude. Absolutely.
It's huge. It has done more for me mentally and obviously as of late than anything. And I've seen it through clients. I've seen it through people through the fire service. They're just different people once they're in that, working out, feeling better, eating better, all that kind of stuff. Because it's hard. And our natural instinct as humans is to find that least path of least resistance. We want to do easy things. We don't want to do hard things, right? So it's so easy to say, I can't get to it. I can't, but everybody that's ever worked out a day in their life, they know they feel better when they work out. That's a fact. You can't argue with that.
Yeah, even if you feel like shit before, you feel amazing afterwards. Every time. I've never left a workout and felt like shit. Even one where maybe I didn't quite, meet all my goals that I wanted to meet. Like, you still always feel better.
Sure.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's talk about the camaraderie aspect of it too, right?
Dude,
like our job.
Yeah.
We don't operate in single individuals.
Right? We all have an individual role, but we operate as a team. Now you're talking about the camaraderie. Now let's really talk about that sports aspect. Let's talk about working out together. Let's talk about, doing these certain things. I personally, don't like working out with like an individual, like on an everyday basis. However, I know the benefits of group workouts, and I know the benefits of the camaraderie. Or hey, how many times I've worked out with guys in the gym at Fire, and we're not talking about working out. We're talking about life. We're talking about a call. We're talking about protocol. You're doing all these other things, and we're taxing our muscles, but we're also taxing our cognitive function as well. And I don't know if you remember in the company fire officer class, we touch about, the cognitive function and why it's so important to train, right? We have to make decisions, critical life decisions, not when we're relaxed, not when we're sitting here on a podcast, not when we're in the chair, when we're sweating our asses off, we're taxed, we're nervous, we're sore, our heart rate is flying through the roof. And statistics show that when your heart rate goes up, your cognitive function goes down. So if you constantly are in the gym and you're constantly training your heart to be at this level and your brain to operate at this level, when you go on the fire ground, you can make a split decision that you wouldn't have made before if you weren't taxed in the gym, right? I always tell people in the gym, you train like this so you can operate here on the fire ground. And that's coming from me personally, So if you're training here, it's going to keep trickling, So if you want to really honor that I'm here to save your life and and especially as you keep moving up, as an officer, it's not even my responsibility to protect the residents anymore. I have individuals sitting next to me throughout the day that I have the responsibility to get them home and get them safe and to make them feel better every single day. So as you progress, it only gets harder. both age-wise, physically, but it gets harder because the realm gets bigger, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah,
And you've probably seen it, the camaraderie. When I have a crew and we're all working, we've all got a workout in, man, the conversations are better, the aura's better, the oxygen in the room is better, the meals at the table are better, the getting off shift is better, right? When a guy says, "Hey man, great shift, man, see you tomorrow," rather than just like a guy walking out the front door not saying
Yeah.
anything,
Hey,
you
see ya.
know?
Yeah.
those I pick up on those things. I pick up on
The little bit of spark that I see in people's face because they did hard work and they got something out of it, you know?
Dude, I'm with you. My department before Lake Zurich, I worked in Antioch, and we were paid on call part time, and then they were contract. So when I was on the contract, and actually probably before that, they had a huge gym, and they're renovating that station, and I hope they keep a huge gym, massive, and tons of room for everyone to be doing the same thing, and every day. Doesn't matter what shift, every day, and we were fortunate enough, there were a ton of young guys. Every day, 3 o'clock, it was pre-workout, 3:30, you're down in the gym. Every day. And guys would come off duty. It didn't matter. Like, we were all together, and we would spend that out. I mean, some of the Chiefs got a little upset because they said that we would work out for too long, but we said whatever. But, it'd be anywhere from an hour to 2 hours down there, everyone together.
sure.
And it was a blast. It's still the most fun I've ever had in that like gym type setting with those guys. I mean, we were putting like max weights up on the wall of guys, like
Yeah, man.
making it competitive, and it was a lot of fun. And
Yeah.
like my department now, we do okay. And I don't know if you guys have like a trainer that comes in or anything like that for you guys, but we do on Saturdays now, and she does an awesome job. And we're getting
Does
there.
she like run a session for you guys?
It's not CrossFit, but yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
so
awesome.
She actually works in Schaumburg. She just got picked up. She just started.
Oh,
But
I think I might know. I mean, I know of her. I think
maybe Maggie?
short. I mean,
Real short girl. Yeah, I think
Yep.
she was
she at Lake Forest before or
Yep,
no?
she was, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So I think she was gonna take our test or did.
Oh,
But,
she
yeah,
was.
first
That's right. She
Yeah.
was on your list. I know we're sidetracking, but yeah. So she's awesome.
That's awesome.
It's hit or miss, and there's always people that cry about it. But to be
Sure.
like for me, like that CrossFit type workout, like doing that alone bores the shit out of me. I struggle to make myself do it. You know what I mean? But in the
Right.
group and with a partner and with her coaching, like it just does. It just feels
Yeah.
so natural and enjoyable. I do enjoy. I get into the workouts, and I'm hit or miss with being able to kind of make that a thing when she's not there coaching through it, and I'll just default back to running on the treadmill and then powerlifting or something like that. But yeah, it's pretty
Sure.
cool. She does a great job. Total sidetrack, and I don't know
that's-
if she listens or not, but
No, and I don't know her real well, but
you've heard of things or fitness, anything related. That's awesome. And I'm real big into any fitness is amazing, right? Like I don't do CrossFit myself,
Sure.
but I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Right. I don't run marathons, but
I'm all for it. Anything that suits you is amazing.
I'm not one of these guys that, like I said, I've been in the industry for 20 years, but I'm not like, hey, this is the way to go. There's a certain way that I train, but I'm all for everything else. Like there's so many avenues of fitness. There's not one right thing. Now, if you go to social media and you look at things, yes, they'll tell you there's one or one right to do things, but there's not. Any good, true coach, trainer will tell you that, there's a million ways to skin the cat. But our department's awesome in the realm of fitness. Our fire chief is super into fitness. He does lead by example. I mean, the guy's he's in great shape. He works out every single day. He's the type of guy that's in there at 3, 4 in the morning. He sets the example, which is awesome to have support right from the top, because I'll be honest with you, being on the fitness division, anything we've ever asked for, anything that we've proposed, it's always been a yes. Obviously not right away, but it's been, hey, if it's in our budget or this or that, he's always made at least an effort to hear it out, pay attention to it, and buy into it, which is, I know that's not, that's not everywhere. So I'm super blessed that he set the tone. We've definitely done some cool things. Lieutenant Pluta with us, he's the head of the fitness division. He's brought in definitely some cool different things. We did a yoga kind of
I did see that.
thing
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. He brought in I can't remember the name, but it was a studio out of Libertyville. They came in, and what we did was every Thursday of the month we did a yoga session. And as you can see, as a fire service, these big, tough guys, this, that, and the other that don't. Oh, sorry, my daughter's trying to FaceTime me, but we'll hold that.
No worries. Have you got taking? You're good. I can wing it.
No, man, we're good. We're good. She knows.
So anyways, they had her come in, and it was definitely not what you think of the fire service, right? Like,
Sure.
This is your,
I don't know how to politically say this,
but your little Asian woman that came in like these
super yoga clothes, like this,
almost like a karate suit.
Yeah.
But
the room was quiet, the music, the things we were
doing, it was great, and I knew it worked when we had one of our guys who retired. He retired as a blue shirt, but he actually is a chief up in Antioch.
Yeah.
And
real kind of salty guy, and
I would say this to his face, doesn't like fitness at all, right? Like not a part of his life. Maybe just didn't grow up with it.
not a fan of it. One session we went in there,
and he either came, I can't remember if he came up to me or I heard it in passing, and he says, "Hey, I'll tell you what, for that 1 hour, I was the most relaxed, calm that I've ever been, and that was unbelievable." When I heard him say that, I was like, amazing.
Yeah.
If we could get
one guy to change and it was him, fuck yeah, man. That was what all.
And what other job is the most beneficial to get an hour of relaxation and mental clarity to kind of just chill out for a second and kind of tax your body in the yoga sense, but also clear your mind for an hour? That's incredible.
Yeah.
And the fact that our department was backing it and paying for it was
obviously another, tribute to us that, they're all for, mental health and physical health. And we've definitely gone down different avenues. We have a therapist that comes in, teaches us the mental aspects of it, kind of how to deal with things. And some people take to it and some people don't. But I always say this, it's a resource, right?
At least we've been given the resources, because a lot of
you hear the statistics that I didn't have anybody. I didn't know who to go to. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to kind of pitch, and also our department and our chief said, hey, we can give you the tools. We're not going to make anybody do anything, but we're going to at least give you them, so that now you have the opportunities to say, hey, there's somewhere to go. And I'll tell you, like, people have taken advantage. Now, they won't tell you they have, right? Either, and that's fine. That's totally cool. There's been a handful of guys that have come to me on the side, and I've made programs for that, whether they don't want to admit that I'm helping them, they don't want other people to know. I don't give a shit. To me, as long as you're doing something great. The therapists that come in, I know guys have seen them. I'm open about seeing a therapist. I've seen a therapist for like mental gains. I kind of mentioned to you about biohacking the body. I'm all about biohacking the body. Our bodies are absolutely phenomenal. I do so many things. I spend a lot of money and a lot of effort and time on my body, whether that's my brain, whether that's my organs, whether that's my mental. Like, I see a therapist to be a better person.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Like, I want to learn how to talk to people better. I want to learn how to be a better
father. I want to learn how to come home from a stressful shift and not be a prick. I want to learn how to, deal with somebody that has anxiety, because I never had it, but I don't know how, when people have it, I don't know how to deal. Like, I was always taught, the thing of like, just tough it up, and
not to get in my personal issue, but I got divorced, a while back,
and my ex-wife had really bad anxiety. And a lot of our issues were, I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to deal with somebody that had anxiety. So one of the things was, when I got divorced, was, well, I don't want to run into this again. So I need to go to somebody and teach me about anxiety, teach me about how to deal with them. So it's not always you have to have an issue. You have to have a problem. It's
maybe it's just you want to be a better person, and we need to be totally open to that, you know? So I
Dude,
think that
yeah.
stigma needs to go away. I don't think we're there yet. I think it's definitely changed, but I don't think as a whole we're there. You know, there's a lot of pushback on it. You know, oh, the kumbaya kind of stuff. But I think as people get older and hit life, and certain situations hit them, they'll change too. So,
I
but
think people kind of wanted that. That's why we have a brotherhood, right? You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's not. It's okay to, feel some shit. It's okay to not feel some shit, right? It is what it is in that regard, right? Dude, I'll second you on therapy all day. I started this year too, and it was a lot of the same thing, right? And like it's been really beneficial to me, and just to be able to talk through some of those things, and like outside of your normal circle of people. Um, and I think every first responder should try to use those resources and really, it's almost like a maintenance thing. You know what I mean? Like
100%,
you're if
100%.
and if you're doing it before you like have a crisis, you don't need a crisis to start it. It's not like that. And
100%.
like I do it through
Yep.
Zoom. It was once a week, and I've backed it off, and now I'm once every other week. But this is
Yeah.
totally fine. I get an hour every other week.
Yeah. Yep. And you kind of tailor it to kind of what you need to, right? Like I did that too. I was doing once a week, and then it was, you know, once a couple of weeks, once a month, and it's kind of now just on a maintenance basis.
Yeah,
And that should be kind of how everything is. And I love the point that you made of let's not wait till the crisis
yeah,
happens. And that is the famous saying of let's be proactive and not reactive, right? My deputy chief, home battalion chief, that was my friend that I talked about earlier. His famous saying is, "If it's preventable, I'm sorry, if it's predictable, it's preventable,"
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So if I know at some point everything's going to come crashing, if I just prepare myself, right? So maybe that huge scenario that might have knocked me back months and or financially, it did as much. Now it's not going to bulletproof you, right?
no, no,
But it's going to help you. And it's the same thing with fitness. I tell this people all the time, right? It's the same thing like maintaining your car, brother, right? Like if I get a car and I don't take care of it, right? It's gonna last me a while. Cars are, you know, they're resilient just like our bodies, right? If I don't do anything to it, I barely get the oil change, don't change all this, it'll last. But when it does break down, it's gonna break down like a motherfucker. I'm gonna need this repaired and this repaired and this repaired and this repaired. Well, same thing with your body, right? If I constantly take care of it and I'm nurturing it and I'm working out, I'm eating right, when God forbid something does happen, I'm not getting knocked down 20 steps. I might get knocked down three, right? And now I can talk about insurance or financial status, right? If I get an injury, I might only be out 2 months rather than the guy that's out 7 months
yeah,
because of that. So, and again, this is all hypothetical, knock on wood, it can happen to anybody, but this is to circle it all together, the fitness, the mental, the emotional, all that stuff. If you just kind of start piecing it all together, you're going to be a more well-rounded person, and you're going to be more valuable to your crew. You're going to be more valuable to your family. You're going to be more valuable to your department, your district, everything. And I think we need to look at it like that and say, hey, how can I be the best possible, rather than I don't need that, I don't need that, I don't need that. You
yeah.
know,
Then you could be 25 years in your career and crying at a Payless shoes commercial because you never processed anything,
right,
And I don't want
right.
to make light of, it's probably mean for me to make a joke like that, but like that's the truth. Like if you don't process these things and you don't understand them, like it will catch up with you. Nobody's bucket's that big, you know.
No, no, and we're not, and I'm generalizing, right? But we're not really geared, especially the type A personality firemen, and I'm generalizing. We're not geared to talk. We're not geared to deal with shit. We're not meant to do that. That's why we do go against it. I mean, I was that person for a long time. I don't need anybody. I'm tough. Anxiety, fuck, just deal with it. Now I know it's real. I've had bouts of it, right? I've had bouts of certain things, but to your point before, right? You only know what you don't know, but it's our job to pass that along, right? And I just don't think we're geared to go down that realm. However, the statistics are showing that it's happening to us more than any other profession in the world. So why aren't we taking it seriously, right? Why aren't we saying, you know what? This is a real thing here, guys.
I always make the comparison that the carcinogens, the cancers, right? That's always been the biggest topic in the fire service, which it is. And what have we done? We've gone to better gear. We've gone to 1/3 bottles instead of some things like that. Again, we've gone to different things. We've made some changes. We've gotten better gear. We've gotten 2 sets of gear. We've gotten this. We've gotten that. That's okay to do. But what about the number one death rate? What about suicide?
Yeah.
What about cardiac? What about heart conditions? What about all these things? What could be the number one source for that? Physical exercise and mental exercise. That's the number one fix for it.
Yeah, dude.
But
I was
it's
gonna
the
say
hardest fix.
I'd have to look again, and I didn't look on the whiteboard this morning. My probie keeps track of line of duty deaths on the whiteboard at work, and he's recently started putting suicides, and I'm pretty sure last I looked, there's more suicides than line of duty deaths this year.
Yeah.
Like,
no, there has been for a while.
That's a big deal, man. That's not something to just push aside and
No.
ignore. Like that's
No.
some heavy shit.
Yeah. Yeah, because what happens when, one of our brothers or sisters, that happens to, we're in shambles. I mean, it's a brotherhood, it's a sisterhood, and that's our biggest nightmare. Yet we have some type of control over it, right? I'm not saying, hey, let's all work out and go to therapy and then we'll all be saved. No, but I guarantee it's going to chop it down. We have the opportunity to chop that down, and we just got to keep pushing it. We just got to keep pushing the culture. We got to keep pushing that it does matter. We got to have the right guys stand up, to say, hey, this does matter. That's why I am an advocate for it, just because I want people to speak out. I want people to feel comfortable. You could be this big, strong fucking guy and still need help.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay.
Are you
It's okay.
you familiar with Rick George by chance?
No.
I will afterwards. I'll send you some of his shit. You want to talk about big dude? Like he looks like Bill Goldberg from the fucking WWE days. Like,
Oh, no shit.
just this big fucking dude, and he speaks a ton on mental wellness. And he's had a lot of shit happen in his personal life, and it's a big story to share. But
Yeah.
I remember the first time I saw him, I was intimidated. Like he's like that kind of guy. Like he looks like it. And when you start to hear his story, you're like, holy shit! Like what he's sharing, the vulnerability that he has about mental wellness and all of that. It's pretty cool. I'll definitely get it your way after we wrap. But you'd eat it up, and in a good way. Like he's really cool. My one of my friends actually called him on the phone. Like when you meet him in person, he gives you a challenge coin, and I have it somewhere over here, and it says I think no one.
Does he teach? Does he do like a class or seminar or something?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, he's retired now and he travels. He's in Florida, but he travels, and I just saw him at Firemanship last week.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, please send me that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I think
Sorry,
that
real
stature.
quick. He did. Sorry, we're
No, you're
each other.
good.
But he did I learned about mental rehearsal from him. I don't know if you're familiar with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he walked us through a guided like the whole crowd. So there's 900 firemen, in Aurora in the theater, and he gets up and he tells us all a way to breathe. So it's box breathing mostly, but so we're getting into kind of that, closing our eyes, breathing with our diaphragms, and then he just he walks us through a meditation, but it's not like humming and nonsense words. He literally walks us through a structure fire and speaks about literally it's kind of like a mental rehearsal, but it was a meditation framed as firemen. It was crazy. Like
I love that.
Everyone, you could feel in the room the level of calmness and just focus
That's
that
amazing.
everyone had afterward. You'll absolutely you'd love him. And
That's super cool.
you truly could call him on the phone today and talk to him. Like he's like that. So
I love that.
I
man.
want to get him on here at some point, but I got to get there. But yeah,
No, I
It's
love
cool.
that. I think that's huge, and I'm super happy that that you even just went through that just to pass that along as
Yeah,
well. Um, and again, even just like you said, his stature and just that type of person that you wouldn't think. I think that's huge,
yeah,
and that's why I'm a big advocate for that as well. I'm not saying that I'm some massive guy, but I'm a bigger, stronger, tattooed, kind of rough edge kind of
sure, yeah,
guy, but I also am very, intellectual and want to be there for that reason. And I've kind of taken on that realm as far as kind of helping. I'm very big into helping others, like obviously as our job,
yeah,
but I've come across a handful of people through the fire service that have gone through some shit, a lot of shit, and they've been attracted to me for whatever reason, and whether it's a calling, but I love that. More than anything, not that they're going through stuff, but the fact that these people are willing to open up and, to get that. And again, if you don't put yourself out there, they would never be like, oh, I can go talk to this dude. I've talked to people that I've never even met before. I've talked to guys about suicide. I've talked to guys about drugs. I've talked about guys about with divorce, all this stuff. And I think that it's a real thing. And the more people we talk to, like more talk like this to say, hey, it's all good. You could be a badass
yeah.
and be fucking and be nice at the same time. You could be genuine. You could be loving, but you could be a motherfucker too. Like, it's okay. It's cool to be both. Like you don't have to have some bravado. I think you're tougher when you are like that. I think you are more of a leader when you do admit you're wrong, when you do have vulnerability, because that shows that you're human and you do relate. You're
You're not
not you're
afraid.
not you're not afraid. You're not fake.
Yeah,
You know. So that's cool, man. Please send me that. I'd be super
yeah.
interested.
To hang out after we're done live, and we'll find
Okay,
it, and I'll
cool.
send you the stuff. Because we're kind of getting towards, or at least towards the closing questions. I did want to
Yeah.
ask, um, because like I said, the sports world is obviously so influential to leadership, coaching, training, all those things, right? And so like if you really want to be good at that shit, like you have to look at the sports world, right? Even if you didn't experience it like me in that regard. And I was curious, what would you say are the biggest parallels between high level sports and professional firefighting? And like what would you say the major differences are? So most similarity, most different between those two things, right? High level sports, high level firefighting.
I think the similarity, the biggest similarity to me is the almost of the hierarchy of sports and the fire service, right? So what I mean by that is like you have your head coach, who I would refer to as your battalion chief, or in some departments as your captain, right? Your shift commander, and then you have your captains, your quarterbacks, your linebackers, and I'm referring to football because that's my realm. But
Yeah.
you get it, right? You have your captains. That's like your mid-level supervisor, your lieutenant, and then you have your blue shirts. You have your players, right? And you have to follow a certain command, right? You have to take orders from the coach, and you have to kind of delegate them to the crew, right? You have to be one of the crew, but you also still have to respect your coaches. Obviously, I think the hierarchy is almost like identical when I make comparisons to football and the real world and the fire service. That's why I think I've personally done so well and fit in so quick, because I've been a leader my entire life. But being a good leader is you got to know when to lead and also when to follow. A good leader is a good follower, right? And you can't constantly lead. That's not a good leader. And I think another similarity is obviously the camaraderie aspect of it, right? Going to battle, going to war. Obviously, I relate, like I said, to football, but any type of contact sport, and even if it's basketball, baseball, you have a team aspect, right? You have your individual responsibilities that equal a team goal, right? I need to be the best individual, so my stats need to be amazing, but not for me. They need to be amazing for that team to operate efficiently, right? So that's another aspect. And then obviously, kind of figuring out your crew is kind of figuring out your team, right? You're not going to have a team full of D1 athletes. You're not. You're not going to have a team full of studs, just like you're not going to have a firehouse full of fucking go-getter studs. You're just not. So you have to be able to know whose strengths and weaknesses, and it really, it gets more falls at the company officer level, but not even, right? Like, know who's your guy, who's your mechanic, who's your fitness guy, who's your construction guy, who's your who talks to kids very well, who does this, and that's the same thing with the team, right? This guy is super fast, but he's got terrible hands. Okay, well, we're pitching him the ball, he's not catching the ball. So it's evaluating your team, operating as a team, but being the best individual you can on your own for the big goal, right? And obviously, individual success equals team success at some point, right? And team success, you're not going to have a very successful team, a state championship team, without a badass player. You're not, So
Yeah.
that's, I think, the best similarity. Again, and then the best thing is obviously the camaraderie. When you go and do hard shit with people, you build a better bond, right? And I relate it to football. When you're having two-a-days and you're running suicides with a guy next to you and you're like, this sucks, I want to go home, it's 100 degrees, this sucks, but I'm doing it with you because I'm going to feel better with you in a minute here. Same thing with the fire service, right? We get up at 3 a.m. for a call and we're all tired as shit, we're all kind of irritated, but we look next to each other and we say, hey, I got you, you got me, and it gets you through it. So that similarity is amazing. Just sitting at a kitchen table is like sitting in a locker room. It's just amazing. And I always preach that to all the athletes, and I coach sports as well. And obviously I push the fire service for that reason. If you love this realm, this will be a good realm for you too.
Yeah.
The biggest differences, one's a game and one's real life.
Sure, yeah.
But I think that there's just so many more similarities than not.
No, it's great.
But the difference is, one's obviously life and death and one's not. So obviously, sports to me are very intense. Like, I'm a big fan of winning. I'm a big fan of doing what it takes to win. But at the end of the day, it's still more developmental and still a game. It's not the end of the world, when this job specifically is. So yes, it could be like sports, but it still is a little bit more serious, obviously, because people's lives are on the line.
Yeah.
That would be the biggest, obviously, difference to me. And then really also the athleticism, right? With sports, you're there to be extremely athletic, and you can't dismiss somebody in the fire service because they're not a specimen,
Sure,
right? They might have another intellect that skyrockets your crew because they're a genius when it comes to mechanics, that I'm not, and I'm okay with that. Like, I don't change my own oil, and I'm okay with that. But there's somebody on my crew that could literally put in and out of a motor, and that is a great skill in its own. So not everybody's going to be crazily athletic. Not everybody's going to be that. And I had to kind of really put that in perspective coming from that world, right? That, hey, if you're not this in shape and if you're not this, you're not a good fireman, let's just say, right?
Yeah.
That's not, that's definitely a
It's a little
difference.
different.
It's not.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think as far as on a physical aspect, though, I've played at some of the highest levels, and I've trained and been around, Olympic athletes and professional athletes for a long period of time. There's nothing harder than firefighting as on a physical aspect, and I could say that because I've done both.
Sure. Yeah.
There's different types of training for sure, but when I put my gear on and I train, or I go into a fire and I work, it's harder on my body than any training camp, any physical camp, team that I've ever been a part of. So I will say that, and I say professional athletes couldn't do what we do, and obviously we can't do what they do as far as a technical level.
Yeah.
But it's up there with some of the hardest physical activity in the world. So. Yeah, and like I said, I could say it because I've done both. So I know both sides. But and that's another reason why I respect and have such a passion for fitness, but more so fitness in the fire service.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. And I want to see also not only people while they're on duty being the most fit, but let's talk about after, after we retire, right? Like one of our benefits, because we do risk our lives and we do statistically have a 10 to 12 year shorter lifespan than the average human, is because of our retirement, because of our early 50, 55 pension,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And I want to see more people thrive and live in those years that they've worked their ass off for, right? We see a lot of it when you get done or you retire. I don't know the numbers, so I don't like throwing it out there. I don't know, but I know it's not that long, right? The average might be like 10 years after your retirement. That's not enough.
Yeah.
Like we need to be doing more now to prolong that later. I might have said it in your company fire officer class, but I say, hey, if I can add one more year to my life, that 1 year might be the year that I walk my daughter down the aisle. That 1 year might be the year that my son, lands a, this one job, or he has a child. So 1 year, 1 month might be the biggest difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd like to see more people think about the longevity of when they're done, but it's got to come from the work when you're here now.
For sure. Yeah. You're creating those good habits now. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, I'm going to do a call out to whoever's watching live. If you guys have any questions, because I'm going to roll into the closing ones. If you got any questions for Alex, throw them in there. If you think of anything later, we can figure that out too. But just kind of a last call for that stuff. It takes a little time to get through these questions. It's not like we're about to just pull the plug. But well, actually, we kind of already answered this one, I think. But I'm a big training guy. I fucking love training. And so I always like to ask, what's the best training class you've ever attended? But we kind of talked about RIT already, but unless something else.
yeah, I'm always going to default to RIT under fire, to be honest with you. I just have not had a class that touched every aspect of that class. Obviously, there's some other, great ones out there. The LDDM class.
Yeah.
I was not a part of that, but I've heard amazing things. I was slotted to go, I believe it was last year. And then some stuff with the promotional happened where, I had coverage for it, but got promoted. So it didn't, which was totally fine. You can't have best of the both worlds. So I didn't go. But if anybody is interested in that class, I've heard amazing things. Yep. Have you gone to that class?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
it's
you
great.
speak on it.
Yeah. Oh, it's a fantastic class. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one, and then any type of even just smaller class of a first in company fire officer. Obviously COFO, I think is a great class. I mean, obviously it's a requirement if you want to be an officer, but I honestly think it's a phenomenal class. In general, I not pushing it because I helped teach it, but I think I learned personally a lot through that class, especially as if you want to go into that officer role. I think that's a phenomenal class to take.
Yeah. Yeah. So I done both. I had just finished whatever it used to be. It wasn't company fire officer. It was fire officer 1.
Yes,
so
fire officer 1 and 2.
I was working as a lieutenant in Antioch. I had finished the classes. And then I got hired in Lake Zurich, and all I needed to do was challenge a state test, and some things happened because I was a probie, and they wouldn't let me, and whatever. So I lost out on having FO1, and so I had to go to COFO. So I went through both, right? And
Okay.
COFO was way better.
Yeah.
For sure. And just it was, and I'm sure it depends on where you go, and what group you're with, and ours felt very collaborative, and I thought there was always opportunity for group discussion, and I think that's what really helps people grow in leadership positions. It's one thing to have a speaker come up and speak; those are important things to have, but those small group discussions, man, that was a big thing with LDDM. Just group discussions really give people perspective and challenge your viewpoints, and it was way better than what FO1 was, which was just, slide after slide after slide after slide.
Right.
Just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had
Yeah.
good instructors for FO1. It's not like it didn't, but just the curriculum was different.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I think, at least the company fire officer that I'm a part of teaching, Captain mentioning with Northbrook does a phenomenal job. I think he does a phenomenal job with the program, but he does a great job picking out the right instructors for certain topics, right? It's hard to find instructors because everybody's busy. There's a lot of people doing this, that, and the other. So sometimes it's, hey, who could just fill the shoes? Well, with him in the program, he takes a lot of pride in not just filling the shoes, right? That's kind of how I came about teaching that class or teaching the fitness and health on that. I was part of the first company fire officer program, and he taught the health and wellness. And he, after the class was over, was like, hey, would you be interested in doing this? Because why the fuck am I teaching it when someone like you could be teaching? I mean, and who, kudos to that. He was a lieutenant at the time to say to me, some younger, guy that, doesn't have any credentials that he does, that kind of say, again, that's a real leader to not to say, hey, you got this, you come and do this. He let me revamp the PowerPoint to kind of do it my own. He's like, you do what you want. And I think it's done well. We've got some great reviews from it.
You're here from it. I mean, quite frankly, like, I'm just going to be honest, right? It made an impact. Yeah.
Yeah. So kudos to that. I think good instructors matter. I think they're always trying to revamp that program to take, advice from people. And in every class, not everybody's going to be happy. No. Whether, you didn't want this, you didn't want that. But I think it's a great class to take. Obviously, it's more geared towards if you want to become an officer. But, I think that was a phenomenal one. And there's some great ones out there, too, that I need to go take as well.
Yeah.
So.
You got to do Georgia smoke divers, bro.
Yeah.
That's some shit, man. What's one mistake that you've made and learned from?
That's a good one. I don't know if it's a true mistake, like I did this wrong and I got this from it. But initially, early on in my fire service career, and this was also mentored to me from the individual we talked about earlier, I cared what a lot of people thought early on. I was always a people pleaser. I was always kind of, wanted everybody to like me, right? I was the captains of these teams. I was always highly appreciated, all this kind of stuff. And when I came in fire service, as you know, you're coming into a realm with a whole bunch of different personalities. And some people they're just not going to like you just because of who you are. Right. Maybe it's just the pants you wear are too tight, or maybe the music you listen to, or whatever. And I think the first mistake I made, I got a little too emotional. Maybe not emotional is the right word, but I cared too much what people thought early on.
Yeah.
And it irritated me. It irritated me a lot. And it made me kind of get a little discouraged. It made me almost want to question where I come from. If you have an issue with people, you bring it to their face. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that in the first service, but I did that very early on to officers, right? And it wasn't disrespectful, but it was more like, hey, I heard you didn't like me. I heard you didn't do this. And what's your issue? And I'm not saying don't do that, but there's maybe a better way to go about that.
Yeah.
But I think it came with some maturity. But my mistake would be, don't care so much what everybody thinks. And draw your own opinion on people, and don't take what people tell you. I did that pretty well. You come into a department and people have their relationships with people. And as a probie, you're a clean slate. So people want to tell you about this person and this person and this person. They want to tell you they're negative, and they want you to form their opinion. I would say don't do that. I'd say I'd say take everybody for face value. Hey, this person might have did that to you, but they've never done anything to me, so that's how I'm going to treat them. And
I think that's very important. And I've gotten looked at a certain way until people talk to me and they're like, man, I didn't think you were like that. Well, yeah, you probably talked to so-and-so that said that about me,
Yeah.
So definitely biggest mistake, would be I cared what people thought about too much early on. I tried to people please. I kind of maybe went away from values at some point just to kind of like please people. And you kind of got to do that a little bit on probation, but don't veer from it so much where you feel like you're being fake. And at some point I felt like, hey man, that's not me, and I got right back on track. But definitely just stay true to yourself early on in a very respectful way, of course, right?
Yeah.
Like
Well, yeah.
There's definitely tradition in the fire service, and there's still
speak when you're supposed to, I'm still all on board with that,
There's a game to play.
There's a game to play.
There's a game. Well, I
Yeah.
can't remember which class I was in or where I was at, but I heard the phrase you're talking about. Still hold your values. Still, speak, about something that you care about and stand up for yourself more or less. I can't remember where I heard it, but it was tact is being able to tell someone to go to hell and have them looking forward to the trip. I love that quote so much because I try to remind it might have been an LDDM where I heard that, but I was like, we share that, man. I was not always the best at articulating things to make people want to listen to me. You know what I mean?
I like it. I like that saying. I
Yeah.
like that. I'm gonna steal that for sure.
I stole it, so it's not mine. So it's all yours, man. But yeah, I heard that and I was like, "Yep,
Yeah.
all right. I can maybe try to adjust things and do it that way." Have you ever lost your passion for the fire service? If you did, what'd you do to get it back, and what keeps you passionate?
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever lost my passion completely, right? I think that still like burns just deep. I think throughout different seasons, like I talked about, you go through different phases that you kind of maybe put things in different perspectives, that you kind of lose focus a little bit. Whether something happens at your department, whether something happens at home. I went through I went through a divorce while I was on, and that kind of knocked me down pretty bad as far as passion. I came into work and I wasn't there. Like I was not mentally there. I wasn't physically there, and people caught on pretty quick. Luckily, I have some good friends that were like, "Hey, we know this isn't you, and we'll be here when you're ready to get out of this, but hurry the fuck up. Like we need our guy back." And I was like, "I got you. Like just give me a minute here." So that was the time that I kind of lost a little bit of passion. I think call volume and certain calls and going on certain things, definitely it takes a toll sometimes, to constantly be not mundane, but, let's just call it what it is. We're going to nursing home after nursing home after nursing home after nursing home. And we all got in this to fight fire and pull people out of buildings and do cool shit. And unfortunately, I mean, EMS is cool shit too. Like, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But I think sometimes that happens. And it's happened to me tons of times because you go through these seasons where shit's kind of slow, or maybe it's the winter months, so training's down a little bit, so that kind of thing. But that's another reason to have good leaders to recognize that and be like, okay, we need to revamp in some other area, or maybe we need to bring this in and bring that in, or reculturize or do something like that. But I think everybody goes through that. But I don't think I've ever truly lost my passion completely.
Yeah.
I've just gone through some seasons where I'm like, fuck this and, stuff like that. But that's life. Like I do that with the gym, sometimes I'm like, yeah, fuck this, this, that, and the other. The one thing I don't ever lose that is obviously with my kids. But I think in most areas in general, you kind of just lose a little bit, but you got to be strong enough to pull it back somehow, and whether you're spiritual or religious or whatever, sometimes praying and kind of like manifesting that does happen, and something like the call that we talked about earlier, that revamped my ass.
Yep.
Like
that got me going again. That made me want to start talking about this, doing that. And unfortunately, it had to be at the expense of somebody's, livelihood, but stuff like that. And if you want to even go into training, put yourself in classes. I was at a lull for a long time, and I'm still like even in it with class wise, and I need to get myself back into it because there was a lot of stuff with promotions the last years that I was fighting for.
Yeah.
Starting businesses and doing all these other things where but that's the part that always gets me back going, so put yourself in a class, even if it's not the right timing, or, you got to do sacrifice here and there, but that will get your fire lit again because you're around like-minded people or jumping on a podcast like this or something that gets you just going again. But you got to be aware that you need those certain things. And early on, I wasn't aware of that. Now I am. But I would say if you ever run into that as a fireman, to get out of the normalcy, right? Obviously, you can't go work for another department or you can't make calls happen, but go take a class. Go talk with somebody that's done things. Like one of the main things that I started teaching at NIFSTA was to become a better officer. But when I go there, I get revamped because I'm listening to stories from this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. Maybe I didn't hit the 3 fires a month, but you did, he did, she did. So then now put yourself in different areas, and that'll help kind of get you through those lulls that we all go through.
Oh, it's great advice. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So you may have already kind of answered this halfway too, but I asked this question, and it's kind of about like a person that embodies who we're supposed to be, right? So, and I ask, alive or dead, you're gonna put someone that knows nothing about the fire service with one person to have them demonstrate and talk them through what we actually are supposed to be. Who are you going to put them with?
I did answer this already.
Yeah, so and that's okay, but you can talk again.
No, and I'll talk again, and I'm going to go back to, Eric Lavernier from our department. Again, that's just me personally. He will embody everything that the fire service has to offer, the good, the bad, how to look at things, how to approach things, what area in your career you're at that you should do this, you shouldn't do that. And he's so approachable no matter what his rank is. One of the things that I didn't even know he did this, but you guys have running boards, right? Like on the chalkboard, the whiteboard, and who's on what rig. Right. So,
but I know.
Okay, well,
I know. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So we have them, and every station has them. What rig you're on, who's on it, and obviously as respectable, the lieutenants get LT in front of their name, battalion chiefs. He's the type of individual that'll erase the rank in front of his name, and I never realized he did that until he told me that, and I was like, that to me defines who the fuck he is, man. And I'm sorry to swear, but I'm so passionate about this human, and because that's who he is. He doesn't want to be called chief because he doesn't care. And when you have a leader like that, it's so much easier to follow. I'm not scared of him. I know I can bring what I want to him, but he'll also hold me accountable. He's also going to tell me how it is. He's also but he's not going to, talk down to me. It's always, I'm going to level with you. He doesn't have to let you know that he's in charge by his rank or what he wears or this and that. He does it by the actions he does, by what he does on calls, the amount of knowledge he knows about the job. You ask him any question, he's got the answer. If he doesn't have the answer, he's going to find it out. I would say if you don't have that type of guy, to find him, every department has him, I think. I've always run into them. Yeah. If they don't, then outsource to another department. Go to a training facility. There's guys out there that love to teach and that want to bring in good culture. I think a lot of the reason why he's moved up the ranks is to build a better culture in general, right? Like he's your fireman. That guy wants to ride backstep every day. Yeah. Like that's just who he is. But he knows the positions that he needs to get to help the betterment of the group, and that's just that's who I would pick all day, every day.
Yeah.
And we got a couple like that. There's a younger guy, and I'll drop his name, and I think he's on that right path. He reminds me of this guy a lot. His name's Chase Hellinger. He was my engineer, or not my engineer. He was the engineer on the call for that fire. He reminds me a lot of Chief Lavernier. Obviously he's younger, so there's some things that aren't, as dialed in as his, but he is very like that. He's always pulling the Proby out on the truck floor. He's always available. You ask him anything, he'll drop anything and everything to help you. He's a phone call away. If he's off duty, he's willing to do anything. Like, just one of those guys. And he's a younger guy.
Yeah.
And I talk about him. Obviously, I got years on him, both, literally and in the fire service. But I look up to him in that sense that he shows up very even keel every day. He's not, and I'm not going to say I'm like this, right? I have my days, and I think people know when I'm having a day and when I'm not having a day. I'm not necessarily what they say is I'm not a morning person. I could wake up in the morning, but I'm not very talkative in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm like, once about 10 or 11, 12, then I'm good for conversation. But at the beginning of the day, I'm kind of like a fucking just like a little bitch. Like I just don't, and that's a flaw.
Hey, listen.
This guy, great attitude from the minute that he walks in to the minute that he walks out.
Those guys are gems, man. Yeah,
dude, he's a great one, and he's a great one. And I would say he's the next one that reminds me of my mentor for sure. So, and I see a lot of guys latching on to him because of that. And he's this guy that'll tell you how it is too. He's not super, he's not going to just sugarcoat it. He gives the Probies their business too, but in an approachable way. And that's to me a good leader. I was coached throughout my life with different coaches. Some that will swear at you till they're blue in the face and mother F you and tell you everything negative. And then I had coaches that, leveled with you. And I felt that I operated to my full potential when I was respected, when I was really coached, when I wasn't managed, when I was coached, not managed. So, yeah. We're lucky to have one at the top and one towards the middle as well. So,
dude, you spread them out. They end up in certain spots, and then about circle of influences and that stuff, right? Like, eventually those two circles intersect, and now you got this big, massive one. Like that's culture building. And in some places that's culture preserving. Or maybe you already have a good culture. So, last one. That's it. It's a simple one. Well, maybe it's simple. I don't know. What's the best part of the job? Not that simple.
There's two. I'm trying to give I think there's two. The first one I'm going to say honestly and cliche, but I'm going to try to say it not cliche because but sometimes things are just they are what they are. But I think truly getting to do the job and kind of helping people in the community. And I'll elaborate a little bit more. But obviously we're going to people's homes and we're going into their lives on their worst day. And I don't know of many professions, that you could walk away of, or you can get off of a shift, or even after a call and you're like, man, I made a difference. Like that person just looked at me and thanked me with the most genuine thanks and heartfelt, some with tears, some with thanks, some wanted to pay you. You're able to make an impact in somebody's life. That is, that's the essence of life, man. Like we're meant to be here to make a difference. Everybody has it in their own way, but we get to do it every third day, and whether if it's pulling somebody out of a building or literally taking their sick grandma to the hospital and they couldn't figure out how to do it without you. And I truly think that's the best part of the job, because that's what keeps you going. That's what gives you purpose. That's what keeps you, just feeling good about yourself and knowing that all the hard work and even the shit parts of it is worth it.
Obviously there is shit parts of this job, just like there is everything. But that's, I would say, the number one. Number two is obviously the guys, the girls, the people that you work with, regardless if you like or don't like them. I think that's a close number two, that the people that you work with.
Yeah.
Like, how often do you get to really do what we do with our coworkers, right? Like, I probably rarely ever called the people I work with my coworkers. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure,
Yeah.
we just don't call them that
Yeah,
because
it's weird. Yeah.
it's weird. They are like our coworkers, but it's weird to call them that, right? That's why we call brother, sister. That's why we call family. I think that is definitely the second, if not one of the first the best parts of the job, that I get to call you my brother, not my coworker, right? And I truly mean that, right? Like, even the guys that maybe don't like me 100% at the department, I know if I called them and I really needed them, they'd help me out, right? And that's a different, right? They could easily, some jobs would be like, fuck that guy, you're not my friend. I could call the guy that I think might not like me as much in the department. I'd say, hey, dude, I need you, and he'd probably still do it just because that's the culture of the fire service. And I think that's pretty damn fucking cool. I think that's super awesome, and stuff like this, right? Like, I've never met you before, but I could sit here and talk with you for what?
Well,
3 hours,
right,
whatever. And that's awesome. That's awesome, because we have the same mindset, we have the same mentality, we have this and that, and you don't find that. Like, I can't just call some random person that does sales across the world and have some great intellect conversation with, because they don't do what we do, they don't feel what we feel, they don't see that. And I think that's phenomenal, and I think that's fucking just next level, man.
Yeah, dude, it's the best. It's so easy to connect with firemen or firewomen or whatever you want to say, anywhere, like pretty instantly if they're into the job, right?
Right.
And even if they're not completely, a go-getter, the people that are sneaky, and maybe feel weird about being upfront about it, it's easy to get them too. There's always myths everywhere, but like, it's always the same shit. You go to there's a Rick Lasky story I thought about it, where he's like he goes to a wedding and he can pick out the firemen. Like, I'm sure you could do the same thing. Like, you and I don't look anything alike, but I'm sure, like, I'd be Alex is a fireman, right? Like,
yep.
You know what I mean? You kind of know.
Or even after just a small conversation, you'd be like, oh, yep.
Pretty sure this guy's a fireman. And so he tells a story about that, where he goes to a wedding or something, and then the fireman he's never met, and he just talks to him the entire wedding. As both the wives are like,
yep.
And the same thing happens to me. Like, if there's a fireman somewhere, I'm probably talking to him, and my wife's probably like,
yep.
Yeah.
And that's super cool, man. I mean, that's the intangible, that's the
unmeasurable stuff that comes with this job, and that's
pretty cool, So, yeah, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, dude, for sure. Well, that's it. Episode
Cool,
38.
Well,
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you again for coming on. Dude, obviously it was an awesome conversation, because we're almost at 3 hours, which is pretty damn good. So if someone wanted to get a hold of you contact-wise, maybe wanted more information about some of the things that you're into, and go from there, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I mean, I'll drop my phone number. I mean, throw my phone number out there. Like, if you're listening, 847-217-4811. You can email me, Nunez, like my last name, NUNEZ09 @yahoo.com. I work for Lincolnshire. You can find me there. I train out of a gym called APX in Buffalo Grove. I'm there a lot. You can come in there and ask for me anytime you want. Any way you want. You can come into Lincolnshire Fire Department and ask for me. I'm pretty accessible. Social media, on Instagram a lot. My Instagram handle is just my name, Alex Nunez 515. I'm on there quite a bit, posting a lot about family, workouts, nutrition, my business with supplements and stuff like that. So,
oh shit, dude! I didn't even give you that to shamelessly plug it.
Oh, that's
Oh,
all
you got to
good.
throw that here at the end. I forgot to mention that.
That's all good.
Please
Yeah.
share that. Yeah.
Yeah, we just launched a supplement company 2 months ago. Briefly, like I told you, I've been in the fitness industry for like 20 years, training clients. But I was really into supplementation, vitamins, and all that kind of stuff, and just really took a knack to it probably the last 10 years, and just messed around with different formulas myself, did a lot of data research, did a lot of like, personal research, trial and error. So I came up with I didn't come up with a branched chain amino acid, but the product I formulated is an amino acid, right? So people have heard of like BCAAs. It's a branched chain amino acid mixed with essential amino acid, and electrolytes, coconut water. It's all natural, formulated, manufactured out of New York. I distribute it here. So we're fairly new. It's been 2 months. It's been going well so far. But we're trying to get into the athletic world. So I got a lot of good high profile athletes on the verge here of doing some sponsorship, some NIL stuff like that. Obviously, I want to get into the fire service as well to kind of replace almost like a rehab type drink. It's great for building muscle endurance, delaying the onset of muscle breakdown. Non-stimulant. It's not like a pre-workout, but it is your overall. I think it's one of the best supplements out there. I'm a big believer of like clean products. So there's no additives and stuff like that. It's made in an FDA approved facility, GMP stamped, sugar free, firefighter crafted, obviously. But it was hand formulated. Yeah, it took me about almost 2 years for the whole process of doing it. And yeah, so it's kind of it's awesome. I've got my family help me out. So like my son and my girlfriend and my daughter were all a big part of it. They helped create the logo and the name.
Yeah.
My girlfriend's extremely talented in everything like websites. She created our entire website. She did the back end. She's in talks with Amazon right now that we're about to be on Amazon. Got a couple things in the making, possibly of distributing, Costco in the making. So we're on the verge of getting there. So yeah, man, it's a great product for, especially for our career, to kind of replace, the Gatorades, the high sugar drinks, but to also just like give us more energy in the sense of having our muscles be prolonged, right? They're not breaking down as much. So it's a great like intro workout during the day, coming back from a fire or even a long shift. If we go, a couple hours without eating, it's a great product to drink to kind of simulate protein breakdown, protein synthesis. So I will definitely shoot you over a bottle.
I'm in. Dude. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So we'll link up. You text me your address, but
Yeah.
I'll shoot you over a couple bottles to try out. We got two flavors right now: strawberry lemonade and blue raspberry. So the reviews are about 50-50, depending on what flavor you like. I started off as a hardcore strawberry lemonade guy, but now I'm leaning towards the blue raspberry. I think they're phenomenal tasting. A lot of our reviews have been big on the taste, so which was huge for us because I didn't want to go super away from morals as far as like synthetic stuff and stuff like that. But we stayed with the data. I stick with data research. So we use the sweeteners that are backed by real science, not buzzwords. So yeah, man, I think it's a great product, and I think eventually it's going to be big.
Very cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, man.
I'm glad you brought it up because I meant to bring it up so you had a chance
It's all
to speak
good,
on
man.
it. So yeah, cool.
Yeah, company's called Elevate Labs. So like another social media, you can find Elevate Labs Nutrition. We're posting stuff, trying to get information out there as well.
Yeah.
So follow us, like us, share, help us out. I mean, that always helps. Obviously, social media is the way of the advertising and marketing. So we need the help with sharing and commenting and all that kind of stuff. So definitely pass that along.
Very cool. Awesome.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, of course. Well, cool. You hang out for a sec. I'm going to close this out. And then, again, thanks, guys, for listening. Thank you, Alex, for coming on and talking and sharing your insight and some things that you've got going on. And that was a real cool episode. So thanks.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.